Okay, so very good morning to all of you. Is the voice audible at the back? Nahi hai? It should be increased. Okay. Is it better now? पहले से? Okay, ठीक है. So again, good morning. So today we're going to start with internal security. How many of you had completed the IR class? यहाँ पे I think काफी लोगों ने करी हुई है, ठीक है? People online also, I think some of you have already done that. The reason why I'm asking you that, because I've told you in some sections you will find an intersection, okay? There will be some areas and topics where there is going to be an overlap with IR also, because when I talk about borders, when I talk about terrorism, when I talk about some other areas, state actors, external state actors, non-state actors, there will be an overlap here, okay? So that is one, fine. So I'll just give you an overview of the subject. First of all, we'll go with the syllabus, what is there, okay? Now, internal security again forms an important part of your GS3. Right, and you will expect 4 questions here. 2 questions will be 10 markers and 2 questions will be 15 markers, right? And if one has covered the syllabus topics well, you will find direct questions here, right? I will also tell you the range of questions. Okay, so in case somebody is joined later on, no issues, you can cover it, but I'll make sure that I cover this comprehensively, so you should not have a doubt in general. Up here there are a few topics. We'll spend just maybe for 5 minutes going through the syllabus. Every year you will find questions from these topics. So the very first topic of the syllabus says to us, linkages between development and the spread of extremism. Okay, when you see this topic, what issue in India comes to mind? Naxalism. So Naxalism is one case study of extremism. Naxalism happens to be left-wing extremism, okay? So this is one of the subtopics within this topic, and the overall topics tell us the linkages between development and spread of extremism, basically meaning that it is a two-way relationship. If there is development, it means there will be less of extremism, whereas if it is the opposite, it means if there is huge underdevelopment, this can lead to, and this will be a very fertile ground for extremism to spread. Now this is not specific just to India, this you will also see globally also. Agar मैं बात करूं, let's say if I talk about Middle East, okay, in areas where you have widespread poverty, there also you will see spread of extremism. If I go and talk about Africa, let's say the Sahel region of Africa, the Sahel region of Africa has huge desertification. Because of that, scarcity of resources. Because of that, the conflict for resources. So weak and fragmented governance there also leads to spread of extremism. So same thing we'll also see in the Indian context, and more specifically, let's say when I talk about left-wing extremism, this is also one of the topics we'll see today. Okay. So yahan pe and please note the syllabus tells you what are the linkages between them. So we know both of them can reinforce the other, right? Of course, what comes to mind also, there's a one of the essay topics of 2018, that poverty anywhere is a threat to human security everywhere. So what is poverty here talking about? Related to underdevelopment, threat to human security everywhere. Why? Because it is leading to spread of extremism. Fine. So whatever syllabus topics are there, we should be very clear, at least in basic sense, what is the meaning, what is the related aspect, number one. Second is role of external state and non-state actors, okay? Now the topic that we are doing is internal security. What affects India inside its borders, fine? And when I'm saying borders, I mean both land borders also as well as maritime, fine? But then the question says what happens inside India can also be impacted by forces outside India. It can be an external state. Take the example of, let's say, China, or perhaps even Pakistan, okay? Even they can impact India's internal security, fine? And you also have some non-state actors. Any example of non-state actors? Right? Anything which is not a state actor. So here, of course, Islamic State can be one example, okay? Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, okay? And the non-state actors and their domains are increasing now. Now you see them also in the digital arena, which means new hacktivists coming in. Okay, the hackers slash activists who are supported sometimes by the governments also. What is this? So they can also create challenges to internal security. And when I'm mentioning the digital domain, please remember the range of conflicts is changing. Today we will also see a topic known as hybrid warfare. Okay, that the convention of conventional warfare is very much evolving. So now you also see information and psychological warfare. You're also seeing the same thing in the cyber domain, okay, which also means the readiness and preparedness of a country is very important, which is why whenever we do internal security, we also speak something related to military, the need for military modernization. Yes, today we'll also see that. Third topic is about, this is something explanatory, challenges to internal security through communication networks. Okay, now communication networks can be as simple as a radio, it can be basic telecom, okay, and it can also be the important role of media as well as social networking sites. Now we are aware that both media, social networking sites are both boon, but they can also be a bane. So in this particular context, we will see that how social media, the social networking sites can lead to challenges to India's internal security. Any example right now that comes to mind in this? Any one example? Achha, mobilization through Telegram. Okay, Telegram can be used. In fact, some of the online radicalization of ISIS happening through some of these platforms can be one example. Achha, debates, ठीक है. ठीक है, तो from public intellectuals you can also link it to urban Naxalism. Okay, ठीक है. We'll see and examine this. Then basics of cyber security. Right now, everybody we know, we spoke and saw digital arrests. Okay. Second, at a point when India is going through a digital revolution, but at the same time we have a huge digital divide. Yes or no? We have issues of financial literacy and digital literacy. So ये एक challenge होगा, cyber security. And this is again one topic that overlaps also with science and technology. We will be seeing this more from the lens of how cyber security is important for India's internal security. Okay? Because let's say if now any non-state actor wants to destabilize, what they will do? They will put an attack on your power grid. Has this happened in the recent times? So yes, in 2020, the Chinese-backed hackers, they had attacked Maharashtra's power grid. So that is why you have to understand that the range of interactions that are happening are now not just limited to boundary, are not just limited to, let's say, terrestrial or let's say the land-based conflicts, but they can be multi-farer. Another topic that often becomes very important is money laundering and its prevention. Okay? So here again we go into very vast, what are the stages of money laundering, but more than that, why is money laundering difficult to tackle in the 21st century? How is technology playing an important part in ensuring that money laundering is difficult? So first you may have heard about hawala transactions, right? Ab kya ho raha hai? Crypto hawala transactions. Technology, okay, so more and more peer-to-peer, anonymous platforms, etc. It has made tackling, seeing money laundering very difficult, okay? So this also is one. Then security challenges, their management in border areas, okay? And then the linkages of organized crime with terrorism. So sabse pehle, whenever we say border areas, so of course there are common problems with the countries that we have, but with almost every country we also have specific issues, okay? Let's say with Pakistan, with Bangladesh, with Nepal, etc. So even this is an important part, right? What are the issues that you see with respect to trafficking? 4 issues, right? Drugs, human, cattle, and last one is arms, okay? So these are common concerns. I can also bring in the fake Indian currency notes. So this is also a topic that is there. In fact, within 10-15 minutes we'll directly start with the border management issues, and then we'll also go to maritime security, which means land borders also as well as maritime borders also. Fine. So that also we'll see. Or this also is one topic. So you see there's a one keyword that is again and again being used. One, dekho ye. Can you see linkages? Okay. Linkages of organized crime with terrorism. Any example of organized crime that comes to mind? Narcotics, somebody is saying, but okay. And there is, how many of you are aware of this Dawood company or D company? Okay, carrying out various types of extortions, various types of crimes. In 2024, there was a question that was asked that was on narco terrorism. So this also is an emerging topic, which means usually terrorists were seen to be very different and organized crime carrying syndicates were different. Right now, the gap and the definition is getting very blurred. It can even be true that terrorists during the night and organized crime during the day. So they are also doing day jobs, night jobs, okay? Mushkil hota ja raha hai, right? So this is also something that we see. Terror financing is also. Okay. And then, so this also, there are in fact various organized crimes that are happening. How to tackle that and how to counter that, and how its linkages are there with terrorism. Terrorism also we see as a standalone topic, but we'll also connect it with organized crime. That is also one. So one has to have a good idea of syllabus. And the last topic is various security forces, their agencies and their mandate. Okay. Now when I say security forces, of course we will talk about CAPF, Central Armed Police Forces. Okay. Within that all the forces will come. Second is, of course, you also have intelligence agencies. Okay. That is there. But other than that, one of the topics that is also included is the need for military modernization also. Okay, because all of them have to coordinate ultimately. The need for integrated theater commands. Okay, so that is also there. So this is the range of topics. Now specifically in internal security, if one is thorough with the syllabus, okay, you will get a good amount of questions. Even if you see the paper of this year or even in the last year, there will be a substantial coverage if you have covered the topics. Fine. So for example, if I'm saying the approach so one is for us syllabus, and each topic within the syllabus becomes important. And even when, let's say, the syllabus mention keywords like linkages, we should explore what are the linkages, right? They said in two topics explicitly they've mentioned the linkages. Other than that, all the other topics become important. Second, of course, we can take a cue from the previous questions of how and to what level they are asking us. Now, this is also an area where current affairs becomes important. Okay. Now, current affairs kaise hoga? Just this year 2025, there was a question on a very specific aspect of left-wing extremism, because in April and in May, the Honorable Home Minister as well as the Prime Minister spoke about the Naxal Mukt Bharat Abhiyan 2026. Normally what people do, they will go into the whole history of Naxal movement, etc. But you have to see, in the recent times, they will not ask you the history of the movement. Right? They will basically be concerned with what are Indian government steps and what are the recent challenges with the topic. Right? So when I'm saying current affairs, all these topics that are there in the syllabus, okay, you have to see their current dimensions. What is the main point that is being mentioned? So when you do terrorism, in this, for us, more important is the current aspect. Okay, if there is any conference that has happened which has led to any outcome, or if there is any global maybe convention, coordination, etc., that current affairs can give you an extra edge. Fine. Other than that, for some of these topics, let's say Northeast insurgency will be in news. So whatever there has happened in the last 1 or 2 years becomes important. So when we do the topics, generally sometimes the tendency is we only go into the history of the topics, but we do not do sometimes the current affairs. So in fact, in our document also, We made sure that all the recent updates and linkages are there. So one does this part fairly well, right? Now, if you do this, almost there is a very good chance you'll be able to hit 3 out of 4 questions in the exam. In fact, in this year, there were not too many surprising questions. This year, people have had, after the classes and in general also, 4 out of 4 questions. Okay? But if I take almost 7 to 8 years and if we analyze the trends, a couple of times there have been some bouncer questions. Okay? Which means, in fact, if I just give you an example, okay? I think there was this no money for terror or something like this. A conference had happened, and based on that conference, they had asked you a question on terror financing. No money for terror or something like that. Is there an answer? Okay. Similarly, they had asked you about, and this is by the way, the Cyber Dome, Kerala. So when these questions had come in those respective years, they were difficult, people had not heard about it. So for questions like this, which are very standing out, okay, so there, what one has to do, whatever you have known about the topic, just say this topic pe, when this question had come, nobody would have known that this is related to Kerala and this is related to internal security. They had only mentioned about what is Cyber Dome and what are its objective and what it does. It was a 10 marker. So there have been maybe 3-4 years mein, there has been one question which stands out, 10 marker, thoda sa hat ke pooch rahe hain, okay? So for this, if you know the topic, for example, if the topic is related to terrorism, you write about that, okay? Because at least you will get some points. But for example, for questions like this, which is totally out of the league and which nobody has heard, then everybody is on the same page. So if you go back to the PYQs, aap socho, sir, ye to maine suna hi nahi hai kabhi, so this actually happened, that this question other people also did not know. So we have to again, sometimes in GS3 or in GS2, one question out of 20 or 2 questions may be very difficult in the range. But that one has to remember, that will be there for all, fine. Other than that, if you're sorted on current affairs, sorted on PYQs and syllabus, you will again have a very good comprehensive understanding of internal security, okay. And again, this is one of those topics, if you give it the requisite time and if you do some answer writing practice, if you go through the PYQs, you will have a very good advantage, okay. Otherwise, you also know in GS3, in other portions, you have to spend a considerable amount of time. Kafi time lag jata hai. But this is a short section and gives you 4 questions. So which is why again one has to be peculiar about it. Okay? Prince, I'll take up these questions when I do these topics. Almost the small differences which are there, especially with insurgency, etc., extremism. I think most probably 2 hours or 3 hours from now, I'll be talking about these topics. Okay? So I'll take those questions up. Okay. So now let's begin. And again, when we begin, when I'm saying introduction to India's internal security, and when we're talking about the importance, etc., so there have been some important events that have been very crucial for India's internal security. And again, one of the examples that is often quoted, an event which changed almost how we visualize for ourselves internal security. The event was, for example, 26/11, okay, the Mumbai attacks. Now, when you look at it from a student of who is, let's say, understanding what is internal security, this one incident can help you understand a lot of linkages which are there. Now, here in 26/11, what we are aware of in general, first of all, it exposed India's understanding of India's maritime security, okay. A lot of focus before this was only on the border security, which means on the land security. So number one, we did not have enough, let's say, focus on maritime security, first issue. Within the different forces, ab jaise ho sakta hai, you have the state police, you have the Indian Coast Guard or the Navy, etc. There was not enough coordination. And when I'm saying coordination, not just for maritime, but for other areas also, coordination generally is a challenge. Because if you have multiple forces, fine. So that is also a challenge. So post this event, we also tried to improve that, fine. Other than that, we also got to know there were huge information gaps, right? And when you say, and when I say information gaps, if you take other recent events into account, okay, let's say 2016 attacks, etc., you'll also find that information gap again happens to be there, fine, which also makes that internal security means constant vigilance 24/7. You have to have organizations, bodies, roles clearly defined. Otherwise, the internal security cannot be taken into account. So, abhi tak 3 points I have mentioned. What are the 3 points? One, for example, maritime in this case, and now this is a specific point, but we can also think general points. Okay, so maritime security was not given enough focus. Number 1 issue. Second issue is and this will also tell, because the terrorists and their handlers were actively using communication networks. In fact, during that time, if you remember the role of media was doing a live coverage. Okay, so just through one topic, I'll try to link most of the topics of the syllabus. So here, one was the issue of role of media and communication networks. We're just trying to revisit a syllabus through one example. Other than that, we also got to know the linkages between terrorism and even some organized crime, and how one, at least at the Indian front, there has to be the conceptualization has to be on a multi-hazard level, that terrorism is not just independent source. And in this case, we also got to know that the support was also there from state actors. Which state actor are we talking of, right? So from just one topic, again you can recall, many other topics are related. So when I'm saying internal security, first of all, please remember, it is a constantly evolving theme, okay, which means the vigil has to be permanent. Vigil means surveillance. Constant vigilance is required. Second thing is, this is just one domain. If you think of right now, 2025, 2020, 2030, etc., we have to keep on expanding our influence. So not only are you talking of land, okay, that is the borders, you're talking of maritime, but you're also talking of cyber, or let's say digital, even space, etc. So the point is, the contours of internal security are rapidly evolving. So one has to be in line with this, or almost similar points आपको मिलेंगे और भी topics में. The challenges that we face. Second is the coordination. Now, if I take up border management, वहाँ पे भी coordination challenges होते हैं. If I take up intelligence agencies, there are coordination challenges. Okay, so coordination ultimately, because there are multiple agencies, we have to ensure that this coordination becomes more streamlined, and this also has to be, which means you have to have proper roles, responsibilities properly defined, right? So yes or no? Then only this can be overcome. And this is not just limited to 2611, even in the recent times. Okay, so how does MHA, for example, communicates? How do other agencies keep on coordinating? Which is why now you see 24/7 different intelligence agencies working. Okay, nine top terms like maritime domain awareness, okay, information cells, etc., are coming up. Now, for information gap, now this is a challenge in different parts. For example, if I'll talk about the districts affected with Naxalism, many a time what happens, the forces do not have the exact local intelligence. Same if you go to, let's say, areas of Jammu and Kashmir. In Jammu and Kashmir, we'll also see today a term that is known as OGW, overground workers. Okay, which means there will be some people who can be eyes and ears of the terrorists also. They can also help them. So which means there is still an information gap. I want to ask you, what can be a way to reduce the information gap? Okay, education, development. Okay, anything else? Currently, these are broader points. Abhi aa raha hai information, development, etc. points I'll also take up. Information gap, for example, when any such, जैसे बहुत बार बोलते हैं ना कि this is a huge security lapse, intelligence failure. Okay, information को I'll make it even more specific. Let's say intelligence gap or intelligence failure. Okay, ठीक है, that's a good example. So here, when there is intelligence failure, okay, so what you need to do, and this can also be because of radicalization going on. तो हर एक चीज का सोचो उल्टा, which means you have to have your counter radicalization programs, right? For example, somebody mentioned community policing, so again, more in terms of winning hearts and minds. Ultimately, if locals are supporting you, because here everything is fine, that you can have more forces, you can have better development, etc. But main thing is you're better connected we are with the locals. Then you will get exact, accurate, real-time information in the local areas. Okay. So even this is there. So abhi आगे भी देखेंगे, winning hearts and minds, etc. Best is, of course, we'll take the help of technology wherever possible. But for other avenues, etc., we have to take the locals also into confidence. Okay. And this approach has been done throughout in various parts also. Even in this 2611, अब हर एक boat है जिसकी patrolling है उसमें there are specific IDs. Okay, this can also help. Second, a lot of community related support outreach is also happening in 2611, right? So as if there is any new boat, something that is not registered, automatically alerts are created. Okay. Then role of media and communication. Now this in the current times is again a challenge. Why is this a challenge? Because of social media. Yes. What is the challenge with social media? सबसे बड़ी चीज है social media का problem या issue. It's a two-way communication, instant. So even if somebody has an inflammatory post or a fake news, etc., on Twitter or on any established platform, by the time you flag it, it would have already been shared to so many people. So that means you want to have as much as possible real-time fact checking. Second, you want to take that information down also. अब यहां पे problem क्या आती है? Because in a democracy, what do you want? Freedom of speech and expression. You cannot censor every post. So you have to balance freedom of speech, but you cannot also put the national security at threat. So even right now, be it different platforms, if you talk of X, okay, or let's say Instagram or any of the platforms, Facebook, etc. So here it's a very slippery slope. How much should government allow versus how much should government censor? Okay, we are taking a lot of steps right now. AI-based fact checking, real-time fact checking is coming in, but still it cannot be 100% foolproof. Which also means the role of government, the role of citizens, as well as the intermediaries, which means the platforms, becomes very important. So this also we'll have a look at. Fine. And lastly, when we are saying you have external state actors, you have non-state actors, you have linkages in the different emerging crimes. So what is the need of the hour? The need of the hour again is, that is why do not think of land only as land, which is why we have more of integrated theater commands, which is why you have to get ready for hybrid warfares. Okay, so the range, which is why internal security must not be managed from, let's say, 20th century outlook. It must be managed from a 21st century modern outlook. The problem is the range of issues that we are facing is changing. So one has to accommodate that. Right. Now, if I want to ask you, why is internal security important? I think we'll also take this point, we should have our own social media platforms. So again, I'm just giving you an overview right now. So when we go into this separate topic, we'll also have a look at it. What can be done in this regard? Dekho, of course, this is now, one can understand that why is internal security important? Think in simple terms, it will lead to political stability, right? How is it political stability? Say if we think in dimensions, if there is internal security, there will be political stability. Just tell me how this will happen. Achha, but how is it political stability? Ultimately, I'll tell you, political, social, economic, all the stability will happen if you have good internal security. Okay? So see, if there is internal security challenges, number one, across party lines there will be issues. Okay. Second, there will be fragmentation. There can be polarization. All of that can ultimately lead to weak political stability. So you want internal security to be the foremost priority, so that politically also the state is powerful. Socially also, I think we understand. If there is an internal security challenge, The communities may be polarized. They can be a let's say a fight or clash between them, right? What is the other challenge socially in internal security? Chalo, communal harmony will be not there. Then the feeling of relative deprivation, that will also amplify. Okay, the groups, let's say, which are at the fringe, right, which have more poverty, they will face acute problems. So this will again lead to perception gaps. Yes, that is a challenge. Third, very obvious, is if there is ever any internal security, law and order is impacted. Would anybody try to put money in that country or in that area, in that district? No, right? So which is also why, for example, some of the red corridor districts have very limited development. And if there is limited development, which means social inequalities will also rise, which means there will be political discontent also, and that can be used by Maoists. Okay, that can be exploited by any other sections. So this is one area. When you see this, ki why is internal security etc. important, you can see some of the important points. Okay? It leads to social stability. Fine. It leads to political stability, economic, 3 dimensions we know. Other than that, law and order, it supports territorial integrity. Okay. It supports rule of law, communal harmony, and cultural cohesiveness. And if you just flip these points, you also get to know if there is any internal security challenge, all these points will get impacted. Yes? So this is a very just a basic introduction of why internal security is important. Okay? And right now also we have seen example of, let's say, the protests, Gen Z protests in Nepal, the political instability. What has that led to? The persecution of minorities, okay, human rights violation, killings, and because of this, new fringe or extremist elements will also come. So there is again always a chance of outbreak of terrorism, more and more radicalization in these areas. Yes or no? So I think this should be self-explanatory. Okay? In the meanwhile, just quickly go through the definition that is there. Internal security, बहुत basic सी. What that refers to, that what exactly is internal security. Just have a look at it. After that, we again, whatever things we have said, in a similar manner, we'll also go through that. Yes, yes. The Gen Z protest in Nepal can also be one example. We discussed that. So in the initial part, we'll be talking about, we are just introducing the subject, and slowly, steadily, with specific topics, you get a better idea of what is to be seen and what is to be understood. Okay? So the components of national stability are basically the importance of internal security we have seen for ourselves. Now, come to this. Generally speaking, there are many internal security threats. Some of them are in front of you. Okay? So for each of them, we'll try to write at least one example right now. And as I take these, all these are almost separate topics also. So then I'll go into more details of each topic. Fine? Now, terrorist attack. What comes to mind? Chalo, just one example right now we'll write. In insurgencies, what you can write? Think of either in Manipur, or you can write overall Northeast insurgency. There are certain insurgent groups like, somebody mentioned ULFA, NSCN, National Socialist Council of Nagaland. But when I do Northeast part, this will go in more detail. What are the respective grievances and what is the possible solution? We'll see that. There have been instances of communal riots also. Okay. Chalo, Delhi riots, one of the recent examples, or any of these one example one needs to remember. Koi ek, sif. Yes, Muzaffarnagar, any 2013 I think that was. Only one example abhi hum rakh rahe hain, right? Because we are just seeing overall what are the threats. Because the previous topic was what are the components of stability? Okay, what is the importance? But if that is not happening, what are the challenges internal security faces? Fine? One example each. Now, cyber security breaches, one example I'm telling you is right 2020. So Chinese hackers actually attacked the power grid in Maharashtra. Even the AIMS wala point is fine. So in this you are seeing two things. One, cyber security attack hai. Second, helped by an external state. Two things. So 2020, the Chinese cyber security attack. Okay, then come to border infiltration. अब यहाँ पे you can think of Myanmar. With Myanmar, we have scrapped or we have started FMR. Scrapped. What is FMR? Full form? Free Movement Regime. Okay? Just one example I'm telling you. And why I gave you the example of Myanmar? Because of Rohingyas also. According to UN, Rohingyas are one of the world's most persecuted communities. Okay? But border infiltration can also be there with Pakistan, even with Nepal, even with Bangladesh, etc. So all the bordering states can be an example of border infiltration. Okay? तो जो हमने म्यांमार भी लिखा था, तो remember with Myanmar, India has scrapped free movement regime, and this supposed was 16-kilometer visa-free travel was happening because of this. ठीक है? Now, internal security threats, there happens to be organized crime. अभी के लिए you can write D company. We'll see more of them. For example, they used to carry out kidnappings, okay, extortions, okay, contract killings, and they are spread now. And by the way, a problem with organized crime is now that they are now not located in a state, not only in one country, but they have also become just like MNCs. Okay. In fact, we'll also see when I say the linkages between organized crime. So in these companies, they exactly work like a company. They have a hierarchy. There is a structure. There is promotion. Okay, let's say head of operations of Asia, head of operations, etc. So you will find this, okay, that normally you would think sir crime hai, everything is sporadic, random. Nahin, it is also very organized. How will they raise resources? How will they do recruitment? How will they do recruitment? So they are also very much trained. They will also use all the apps, social media, outreach, training centers. Ho sakta hai there is a head of indoctrination, head of social media, etc. So a lot of these things are carried out. Then maritime threats mein one thing one should remember is 2611. But maritime threats are not just this. It can be as simple also as a oil spill. That can also happen. But of course, smuggling can also be there. A lot of drug smuggling happens via maritime route. Okay? And in fact, terrorism can also happen via maritime route. So there are multiple maritime threats, only a couple of them we are seeing right now. Okay? Then you have something known as psychological warfare. What is this? Acha, haan, okay. So again, for example, when, let's say, Operation Sindoor was happening, from both sides, okay, you would find extremely exaggerated claims. Was that seen? That entire port of Karachi, etc., has been taken up, and everything is being surrendered, etc. But you will see this not only here, but even in China. China is an expert in psychological warfare. Okay, so abhi China case mein you also hear terms like wolf warrior diplomacy. Okay, so psychological warfare ultimately, see what is the intention that your people feel insecure. There is a threat, right? So this has happened. So you can give examples of China, you can give examples of Pakistan here, exaggerated claims online on social media, etc. Wolf warrior hai wo. Wolf warrior mein what they will do? The proper, let's say, respective government officials, they will make outrageous claims on social media. Okay, so that is again a strategy which they have. China, wolf. Wolf warrior diplomacy is just one keyword here. Yes, illegal fishing can also be one, human arms, etc. So we'll also see this one by one, because the very first major topic which we'll have is border management. Okay, so this is one. Now this is also mentioned in our syllabus, and we are just unpacking the syllabus in the initial few pages. Now the role of external state actors. Okay, what are the four elements of a state? Sovereignty, territory, government, population. Okay, so one is external state actors, and you also have non-state actors. Are both of them independent, or they can also be a coordination? They can be. So they can be state sponsored non-state actors. Okay, now these external state actors can actually, so be it armed forces, intelligence, or bureaucratic structures, they can back, and this can be carried out in the neighboring states or even in outside states. This is why it becomes a challenge. So they can back some of the entities to carry out actions, including their own. And because these are their own, hence we say the involvement of external state. For example, we talk about Pakistan's ISI. Okay, for example, Israel has its own agency. What is that? Mossad. They also carry out certain operations in some other country. So then that is why it is said the involvement of external state is there. Okay, this is one example. Jaise ki you can have military, intelligence agencies, government bodies, etc., which are backed by states. So one example is China. You have Pakistan, Bangladesh. So this dimension you will see almost in every topic. When I do left-wing extremism and India, you will again see the perhaps alleged involvement of China. When I say border trafficking, you will again see the influence of China and even Pakistan. Terrorism, you will again see the role of external state actors. Even in communication networks, you will again see the role of external state actors. So across various topics, ये एक ऐसा dimension है, this topic and this one non-state, this will be there across various topics. Yes. So almost her topic में when you will be asked and when we'll analyze what are the reasons, let's say, for the spread of Naxalism, reasons for terrorism, reasons for insurgency, almost every time we will see one dimension of external state actors. Can this dimension also be there in the case of Khalistan? This can be there. Okay, so I'm saying across all the emerging and range of issues, you will see this again and again. Okay, the role of external state actors as well as the role of non-state actors. Okay, now here various examples of certain non-state actors are mentioned. Main thing is we should be aware about some of them. Now these non-state actors, they can be independent organizations, individuals. Because the term is non-state, so these are not directly state, so they are not officially connected to or funded by government. But again, I'm telling you, in the recent times what is happening, in the recent times of proxy wars, they are also getting support. Okay, now what can these actors be? They can be a multinational corporation, international NGOs. Now talking of NGOs, sometimes NGOs have been criticized for the nature of their work and also the nature of their funding. Okay, in the recent times, India has also put a lot of strict regulations on the funding of NGOs. Okay, the reason is because they can also be used to carry out some other states' operations also. Then they can also be terrorist organizations, and they can also be transnational organized crime groups. And various examples are now right in front of you. Let's have a look at. Now, there are certain terrorist organizations. Lashkar-e-Taiba, JEM is Jaish-e-Mohammed. You have Islamic State, and then you have this Al-Qaeda. Okay, again Al-Qaeda and a wing of this related to Islamic State. Then there are certain insurgent groups. Both these groups we'll again have a look at. Northeast insurgency mein. NSCN is National Socialist Council of Nagaland. This is a broad group. In fact, this group has also been broken down. तो एक है NSCN K and one is NSCN IM. Okay, Isaac Mavaiya. तो उसको भी देखेंगे आगे कि why the factions are coming and breaking down. You have ULFA. What is ULFA? United Right of Assam. Okay, so in the Assam movement they have had a role and we'll see their demands. This is also linked to the Assam Accord. Okay, so this also we'll have a look at. Now Islamist extremist networks are also there. Okay, so a lot of them happen to be in Afghanistan, and when we say Afghanistan, remember Afghanistan, I'll just make a crescent. Okay, this is the golden crescent. Now in the recent times, instead of golden crescent, in some articles you will find the mention of death crescent. Even in the recent speeches, which means the 6 or 7 months old speeches of the let's say the Home Minister, so this term is now getting replaced with this, so don't get confused. You will now see terms like death triangle and death crescent meaning the exact same thing. And why the nomenclature has changed? Because if you just write the term golden, it does not tell you the severity of what is happening here. So when I say death crescent, which simply means drug trafficking, right? And drug trafficking has interlinkages with arms trafficking also, because that generates a lot of money, and also with human trafficking, okay, terrorism. And Afghanistan, again, so there are a lot of opium warlords here. So this happens to be a challenge. Organized crime syndicates. The prominent example here is D Company. Within a lot of Bollywood movies, if you know, are based on this theme only. Okay, you also are aware of, let's say, Gulshan Kumar. Okay, the killing, etc. The responsibility was taken by. So again, a lot of extortion used to happen, killings used to happen, and actors, etc. where they were asked, you have to give money for your protection. Okay, so that was there. And not just this, they have various operations. These are now Dubai-based or multinational companies. Various operations are happening, etc. in different continents. You have cyber threat actors. ये भी हमने देखा term एक hacktivist groups. Okay, which means hacker plus activist. This is known as hacktivist group. Okay, right. There is also a term known as dark web. सुना हमने? And there are dark web operators. In fact, again, when you go to role of communication networks, role of media, and role of internet, etc., again a lot of transactions, a lot of crimes would also happen via the dark web. So this is also an emerging area of conflict. Fine. There are certain religious extremist organizations, global jihadist networks, okay, and the element of foreign religious funding. This can also be routed via NGOs, by the way. Okay, and sometimes this can also intersect with certain terrorist organizations. This is also a challenge. Now there are certain armed traffickers. Ab yahan pe you can give examples of Myanmar, Nepal. Many such groups are very active here. Okay. Now even separatist movement, for example, like Khalistani elements. So some non-state actors in UK, in Canada. Do you remember any personalities? Nijjar to Kaling, okay, right, Pannu. Abhi bhi in the recent 2 or 3 days back also was in news. Okay. So this is one. Then there are also separatist movement, and there also you have northeast insurgents. So you see two back-to-back connections. Insurgent groups can operate independently, number one. Additionally, there are certain separatist movement which can also have the influence of non-state actors. That is also true. Other than that, we've also seen how NGOs can become front organizations. Right? So NGOs sometimes get a lot of goodwill. So they will, let's say, from the outside it will look they're, let's say, carrying out poverty relief works. But at the back end, they may actually be carrying out any of these, let's say, illegal activities. And last, for example, left-wing extremist support. So, aise yahan pe there are many examples here. Okay. for their support. यहाँ पे of course there are certain Maoist groups also with support. CPI M, CPI ML, some of the parties supporting some of the. So CPI M, within that there can be some fringe elements. So left-wing extremist support networks are also there, supported either via parties or sometimes even as independent intellectuals. So the point to be made here is one, that when you're talking about internal security, role of external state actors as well as role of non-state actors is paramount, and across issues we'll see that. Okay? That is one. Now, opium, see, the cultivation of opium ultimately is what? The drug trade. Okay, and a lot of this fighting also happen. Warlords means there will be some factions. So let's say there are 4 or 5 groups. So they are selling opium also, and they're also fighting between them. So a lot of opium warlords means they will have all the power overall of cultivation, of selling, export. And they're also tied to a lot of Taliban. So Taliban, if we see the power structure of Taliban, many of them happen to be opium warlords. Okay, now before we begin with the very prominent first topic, just see this, and this you will see across topics. So what is the strategy related to internal security? Okay, and we see all the dimensions. Number one, you see intelligence and surveillance. So the question is, if for any topic, if I replace any topic here, some general points if I want to have. So for example, if India wants to improve its border security, one, it can improve its intelligence and surveillance. One. Second, institutional reforms, which means the agencies that are there can be reformed. The laws can be reformed. This is one dimension. Another dimension that cannot be ignored and we are taking is separate is cyber security, because cyber security in general is cutting across all the other topics. And lastly is social, which means we are also linking people, your local population. Now let's see the points one by one. Fine. Number one is enhance intelligence sharing. Okay, now between states also I can enhance. I can also enhance between state, means what we're talking of, the regional states, and between nations. This can be made better. Invest in modern technology. This is again a common point which you will find across. Okay, this can be made better. Training for personnel. Now this, even if you see for police reforms also we talk about is the training has to be made continuous, better. And even for intelligence, tell me some of the intelligence agencies in India. IB, abhi exam hua. Chalo, okay. When was NIA created and why was NIA created? After 26/11 attacks. National Investigation Agency. Any other body? Okay, I can also mention the National Technical Research Organization, some of the prominent intelligence bodies. Now, for example, when you already have so many bodies, again imagine the coordination will be very difficult. Okay, this is there, and even for specific crimes, just say for example for financial crimes, you also have ED. Okay, any other body for financial crimes in India? CBI can take, or koi body? Okay, so the point is, FATF chalo global ho jayega, Financial Action Task Force, again grey listing and black listing, etc. So my point is, training of personnel is very important to enable intelligence sharing also. Fine. And last is international collaboration, right? Yahan pe Interpol. You can even mention FATF. Just one of them, ऐसे तो और भी Egmont group है, there are many other. For now we will only write this, for example. Now institutional reforms, number one point for example is strengthen security laws. Now is NIA A statutory body, executive body, which kind of a body? What is the act if it is statutory? The NIA Act, okay, it's a statutory body. So the point is, if you have certain bodies, if they are backed by strong laws, so this will again help. You can give the example of, for example, NIA has been given proper backing. Not only is it backed by a law, but the law also has been amended. In 2019, there were again certain amendments to NIA, which made it even a more strong body. Now, implement police reforms. Why is that? Because see, broadly speaking, a lot of law and order will be tackled by police. For now, remember, one of the major issue that police faces in general, what is the issues with police face? सबसे पहले याद रखो, UN, according to UN, police population ratio has to be 2 to 2 per lakh. What is there in India? Oh, almost 155, 158. So पहली बात है understaffed, one issue. Second is overworked. Okay, and why are they overworked? Because they are understaffed. Third main point you have to remember is the policing operations and investigation operations are not separate. In other countries, etc., investigation is carried out by a specific body and the basic law and order is carried out by a specific body. यहाँ पे दोनों काम the police has to take, which is why the level of investigation, intelligence is very shoddy. It's not good. Okay. And when I say police reforms, you should also remember the Prakash Singh case. Basically, it spoke out 7 points. Just remember this, you can again recall. But we are seeing police right now from internal security, which means for a nation like India, which has widespread challenges, not only should you have adequate number of security personnel, one, right, they should have clear demarcation between their roles, and third, of course, you can say depoliticize the nature of their work, etc., can be mentioned. Institutional reforms may be also talking of accountability for NGOs. NGOs happen to be non-state actors. Why should there be accountability for NGOs? Because the foreign funding can be misused. Some of the foreign NGOs which have, let's say, office inside India, if it is used for anti-India activities, okay, so for both these accounts there should be accountability for NGOs. And last is national security doctrine. Does India have a national security doctrine? We don't have it, okay, and which is also why, अब देखो, when I say we don't have it, you can also say, sir, हो सकता है हो, but it is not there for the public. Fine. But USA, etc., they also have something which is out there in the public. Fine. So we will also debate this. This is also a topic we'll do. That first of all, what should be a part of India's national security doctrine? And second is, this doctrine must also be continuously updated. Because the range of challenges which India is facing is constantly changing. Again, remember, we are present with 2 nuclear armed neighbors. Yes. Border challenges है हमारे पास. Then with border there are multiple challenges. You have maritime challenges. Plus you also have the issue of external state and non-state actors. Yes or no? So the national security doctrine must be evaluated and updated as and when needed. Then cyber security. Abhi right now we are seeing some simple points. These are specific topics also we'll see. जैसे कि strengthen the cyber defense, better user reporting mechanisms. Now educating the public is also equally important, okay, which is why for almost 2-3 months we had back to back, आपके caller tunes change हो गए थे, right? So educating the public is also important. Collaboration with tech companies. Now for example, the election commission also collaborated with Facebook and X, especially during times of elections. If there is any fake news, it will automatically be taken down. Similar, Indian government also has some tie-ups, okay. The IT companies, or let's say the tech companies, they have to have intermediary, they have to give a compliance report, okay, every month. So collaboration is happening, but the point is how fast can you act on it? Because right now in digital arena, it is the speed that is very important. Lastly, when you see social integration, okay, यहाँ पे अलग से कीवर्ड लिखो. This keyword we'll see many a times. WHAM, WAM. What is WAM? winning hearts and minds. Okay, promote job creation, support for education. Overall, we are saying development. And with this, again, recall the very first topic of your syllabus is the linkages between development and the spread of extremism. Now, on that front, I'll give you two examples. Number one, initially India's approach to left-wing extremism and India's approach to Jammu and Kashmir was security oriented. That we saw this was a law and order problem. अब solution क्या होगा law and order problem का? आप सोचोगे चलो, if I have 5,000 troops, I'll send 5,000 more. Right? Would that solve the problem? No. The problem was rooted in lack of development. And if there is lack of development, there is governance deficit. But usse bhi zyada problem hogi, there will be a perception deficit also. So initially when the government started now, so ab kya hai, the government approach has changed from security to security plus development. So at the number one level, you have to tackle governance deficit, but perception deficit, that will take some time. So that is also being done. So when I'm saying social integration, ultimately internal security challenges, you have to, if the people trust the government, right? So there will be better social capital. So social integration is also an important part of internal security strategy, which is also why there is also a lot of focus, for example, on de-radicalization programs, focuses on surrender cum rehabilitation schemes. This has happened for left-wing extremism. This has also happened for Jammu and Kashmir. Surrender cum rehabilitation, de-radicalization, winning hearts and minds, focus on development. So these themes, major 4 themes, you will get repeated again and again for certain topics. And the idea here is, if you have to solve any problem, we've also read a fancy keyword, multi-pronged approach. Okay? Which means the solution to one problem cannot only be just on one pillar. You have to talk about other avenues as well. So abhi yahan pe what are the 4 dimensions that we have seen? One is intelligence, surveillance. One is institutional reforms, and this is also spread across. You're taking non-state actors, you're taking police agencies, laws to be strengthened, and even a doctrine to be strengthened. So very comprehensive points are there. Then you also have overall the emerging domain of cyber security, even that has to be made better. Fine. And you can have social integration. Now this same thing will be, let's say, slightly modified in the topics. You will see that also. So till here, are we able to follow? Okay. Acha, there were 7 points overall in the case. The outcomes, okay, what were the main recommendations? That is why I've written 7. Right. Abhi aage aayega. Surrender come means, for example, if somebody, so there were, let's say, certain Naxalites. The scheme was saying, if you surrender yourself, okay, then the level of punishment will be reduced. You will be reintegrated back into the society after some time. So what happened? A lot of, let's say, parents, they said ki apne, for their, let's say, kids, etc., that you should surrender. Otherwise, if you do not surrender, the state can take the harshest of punishments possible. So agar ek policy aisi hai, so people will started to turn in. So that is the surrender cum rehabilitation policy. So they will be ultimately integrated into the mainstream. That is the meaning. Surrender cum rehabilitation policy. Okay. अब आते हैं the first major point here. Border management in India. Okay, तो यहाँ पे just make a, this is 15,000 land borders. Coastline पे please make a change. The coastline has been updated, yes or no? But ठीक है, you should also connect this, because now in certain articles you will find the updated part. कि MHA का notification भी था, etc. So that is one thing you have to remember. Now, when we say border management, पहली बात, just basic things you have to remember. Borders are land as well as maritime, both we'll see, right? Now they are very important for national security, economic stability, regional integration, and there are many challenges which the border have or they face, like infiltration, smuggling, migration, insurgency, disputes, and which is why you need comprehensive management of borders. Yes. Now when you see this topic, border management, pehli baat to, a lot of countries you have similar border disputes, right? And with some you have more specific disputes. Yes or no? So what we'll try to do, maybe in just 5 minutes, ek bar, let's try to quickly see what are the challenges here. And then I'll go into this one by one, concerns kya hai, etc. Now, if I ask you a question, why is border management crucial for India? Territorial integrity, just try to think out points. Why is border management crucial for India? So, ek ho gaya. That is territorial integrity, sovereignty, one. Demography, okay. Second, political stress. Resources I'll link to demography. Bordering, okay. Anything else? Security threats, theek hai. So there are few points that one can look into. So number one, why is border management crucial? Because see, borders are having, managing borders is a geopolitical challenge, right? Why is it geopolitical? Because borders are contested, right? So you are fighting on the eastern and the western sector, etc. with China, okay. Similarly, issues are there. Border management is very crucial for India's national security. Kyun? Otherwise you have threats of smuggling, terrorism, migration. Border management is equally important for India's economic concerns. Somebody mentioned here, it is also very important for demographic management. What is demographic management here? Right, see, demography means, and this is again when you think of this point, think of Northeast. The major demands, let's say even in Assam, even in Tripura, they have been talking about that if outsiders are coming into the region, what will happen? Resources are limited, it will put an additional strain on the resources, and the local population will not be able to get the right benefits, right rewards. So demographic management, or you can say why border management is crucial, because it will lead to demographic imbalance. Why? Because resources are limited. And this is the main concern. So you have to link this also with one of the main issues that is there with Northeast insurgency. When I talk to you about it, I'll also go in more detail. Citizenship Amendment Act, okay, the recent changes, what is there. So one of the core issue is this. And last main important point is, this is very important for India's territorial integrity. This is also true, right? So if you manage your borders, geopolitical challenges can be averted. Otherwise, even right now, you have challenges with India and Nepal. Nepal had produced a map saying Limpiadhura, Lipu Lake, they are my territory. Issues with Pakistan also on the borders. So you can solve these challenges if you manage your borders well. Similarly, India, China. So there are many issues I can talk about in number 1 point. Yes. So national, economic, I can even last में social भी ला सकते हैं. So why is border management very crucial for India, right? अभी second half पे हम आएंगे थोड़ी सी देर में. What are we doing about this? Okay. Now, ये भी बाद में लिख लेना. I'll show this to you. What are the strategies, etc. Now, again, let's conceptualize the border management, or I should say border issues first. Now, we will just try to recap. Okay. And in case somebody has not, let's say, done the IR wala class, agar if you're starting right now, no issues also. I'll take up each country one by one. I'm also including the countries with which we share maritime borders also. There will be some common issues, but yahan pe I'll just only write the specific ones. See, what are the common issues on the borders? If I'm talking of trafficking, human trafficking, fake Indian currency notes, arms trafficking, drugs trafficking, remember death crescent and death triangle, okay, cattle trafficking, wildlife, or I should say illegal wildlife trade, and there is human trafficking that happens, okay. FICN is fake Indian currency notes. This is again a common challenge across the borders. Now, why all these things happen? One common point you will see again and again, we say the borders are pehla issue. Think from a geography angle also. The geography of this the regions around the borders, the terrain can be, yes, terrain can be hostile. The forces may not be very well aware, which is why the local intelligence is very important in these areas. Fine. So, जो geography and terrain है, this can be hostile. These are common challenges that you see. Other than that, human trafficking, अगर मैंने लिखा, मैं अलग से एक point लिख रहा हूँ. This is also challenge in some of these countries, and this is particularly true in the case of Myanmar, and through Myanmar also this Bangladesh, okay, and right now also with Nepal. That is why the security along the Nepal borders has been increased because of the crisis right now. So refugee crisis can be one, and with refugee, remember migration. Any other common issue that you can think of? अब देखो श्रीलंका, मालदीव्स एक्सेट्रा जो वाटर वाले हैं उसमें तो रिमेंबर द कॉमन इश्यूज लाइक piracy, there can be illegal, unregulated, underreported fishing, IUU fishing can be one of the issues. But the last year yellow pointed, this is there for the maritime aspect. Right now we are just seeing some of the important common points. Uske baad, of course, we'll go into some other aspects, right? Now, one common issue that you can also say, insurgent sanctuaries or safe haven for insurgent groups. That is also why arms trafficking happens. So even if you think of Myanmar, even if you think of Nepal, even if you think of China, Pakistan, etc., a lot of insurgents which are there, after carrying out their activity, they'll go back to the other state. इसलिए in a lot of issue we also face on the borders is these are insurgent sanctuaries, or they provide safe havens for insurgent groups, which is why continuously India has a dialogue, which is also why India scrapped the FMR with Myanmar. The same challenge we also face with Bangladesh, with Nepal. A lot of groups which operate in UP, Bihar, etc., when they are getting caught, they'll go to Nepal. After some years or maybe some months, they'll again come back. So this continuously happens. So these are some of the common issues which you face, which we face. Now, one by one, if I have to give you more specific examples, देखो पाकिस्तान, अफगानिस्तान etc. पहला पॉइंट तो कॉमन है दोनों के केस में, the death crescent, and because of this death crescent, this leads to narco terrorism, which impacts Rajasthan, which impacts Punjab, and which impacts a lot of part of India. The drug trafficking ultimately leads to narco terrorism. We've taken this as a separate point also, but remember, because Afghanistan happens to be one of the biggest reasons, the region of the world where there is a huge drug trade. In fact, major money of Taliban also comes from a lot of drug trade. This is one challenge. Okay. Now, specifically with respect to Pakistan, I can mention on the borders the issue of cross-border terrorism. Now, with Pakistan, of course, we have the specific issues. One, of course, when I'm saying border, I'm covering. So, one is Indus Water Treaty, the problem or issue in Kashmir. Even I can say Siachen, I can say Sir Creek. Just mention these words. Sir Creek, IWT, Kashmir, and ultimately the issue also of Siachen. And when we say cross-border terrorism, you also have to link both. यहाँ पे issue है state-sponsored non-state actors. Which is why there is often a mention of Pakistan's policy of bleeding India through 1,000 cuts. That is also known as asymmetrical warfare. So state-sponsored non-state actors. Can you give me any example from Pakistan? Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba. Okay. एक अभी recent at TRF, the Resistance Front. Okay. Remember some of them? So when you see this, that issues in borders are also with respect to the rivers that are being shared. The challenge of Indus Water Treaty. Fine, we have seen that in the IR class. Issue of Kashmir, Siachen, and Sir Creek. These are some of the issues. Any other issue that we have with Pakistan, think from internal security angle. अब देखो, हाँ बिल्कुल सही है. One is insurgent sanctuaries. Now the space is limited. I'm just writing some keywords here. With Pakistan also write OGW, overground workers. With Pakistan also writes, with Pakistan it is not again, remember, land borders with 2611. So maritime also overlaps with Pakistan. No, internal security, it's a huge problem. आप मुझे बताओ क्यों नहीं है? Can water, when I say weaponization of water, can it lead to internal security challenges? कैसे? बताओ. Then what will happen? Instability can also happen in the region. Can instability also spill across the region? No, but this can lead to other issues in India. No, simply देखो आप सोचो. The moment this happens, okay, if there is any instability in Pakistan, other groups, the states or non-state actors, they will become active. So, because remember, if there is any social issue, any economic issue, all of that will always be impacted. And when we say Indus Water Treaty, and we've always made the claim that blood and water cannot flow together. So this is both एक international relations का भी issue है, this is also an internal security issue also. That what will happen if any of this, if it is increased, the flow is increased, then also a challenge can happen in the coming times. If the flow is decreased, then also a challenge can happen. not just for Pakistan, and what happens in Pakistan will always spill over to India and around. This is the main challenge. Yeah, वो forum सही है, but direct impact होगा आपको. That is the issue. And because here it can also influence the, let's say, investments, CPEC, etc. So Chinese angle can also come in. So with Pakistan, it is not just Pakistan. If it is influencing Pakistan, it is also going to impact China as well. Fine. So China angle can also explode here. I think various points we have had with specific to Pakistan. With Afghanistan, almost all the points. Remember, whenever you write of Afghanistan, definitely emphasize on drug trade and narco-terrorism. Okay. And second issue of Taliban, and the third issue of terrorism being again a factor in Afghanistan, which can also impact India. Because see, if there is terrorism, this will also impact the peace and stability of Kashmir or in the region. If Afghanistan is unstable, Pakistan also gets impacted, and if Pakistan is impacted, India is also impacted. So when you see these regions, these will have multiple factors. Okay, although we have better relations with Afghanistan as of moment, but if they are not able to control, let's say, the terrorism and all the activities within Afghanistan, this will also be a challenge for India. Now, coming to China. China में something we have done, but we'll again repeat it from the border point of view. याद है अपने को ये? Eastern sector, middle sector, western sector. Which two are disputed? Western sector. LAC will remember, line of actual control, Aksai Chin, all of that region. And then also the issue of eastern sector, Arunachal Pradesh. Okay. This is one challenge, a long pending challenge on border security front. Okay. Although slight de-escalation has happened. Where? Two area, Depsang Plains and Demchok. They have had certain disengagement, but still challenges there with China on borders, number one. Second, on maritime front, फिर क्या issue हो जाता है? String of pearls. Okay. Other than that, Chinese investments in other regions. So यहाँ पे, when we see both IR as well as internal security will overlap. Other than that, Chinese support to a lot of non-state actors, let's say, left-wing extremism can be a challenge. So यहाँ पे the issue, don't only think of borders, also think how Chinese influence is also influencing your borders. So think of Northeast, okay? Support to non-state actors ultimately will influence Northeast also. Okay. And second, while we are talking of border issues, also remember China as an external state is also influencing. Right? Chalo, blocking UN, that will be a more IR wala point. Internal security के लिए क्या हो जाएगा issue? One, from the cyber security point of view also, so there will be certain challenges because of China, right? हाँ, चलो dam etc. that is true. Hydropower. Water वाला तो we'll write it. Bangladesh में, see Bangladesh में number one you have to remember, the largest land border India shares with any country is what? Bangladesh. Fine. One is this. So Bangladesh में first remember, right now the issue political instability will lead to issue of, तो पहला issue है migration, specific issue. Okay. And of course there is the rise of extremist elements in Bangladesh. Other than that, right, the code 2/54 you will remember. India and Bangladesh share 54 rivers, out of which for only 2 rivers there is a river sharing agreement. Which are the 2 rivers? Ganga, Kushari. Okay, 2 rivers. Which means for other rivers this is also dispute. Yes. So migration challenge hai. Rise of extremist group is a challenge. Other points are common. Right? So जो भी हम लिख रहे हैं points, बाकी सारे points तो हमें पता ही हैं. ये सारे रहेंगे ही रहेंगे. Right? बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. So when I say 254, it means basically the issue of Teesta. Teesta is unresolved. Right? So with West Bengal and Bangladesh, this happens to be a big concern. Okay? Now, Nepal, 3 points explicitly, you know, we have used the keyword cartographic aggression. Nepal may remember Limpia Dhura, Kala Pani and Lipo Lake. Okay. So Nepal claims these territories as its own cartographic aggression, which means they will change the map. Cartographic aggression. Other than that, with Nepal also remember, there is hydropower corporation, but the challenge is also there. There's a Mahakali River Treaty, and with the rivers now changing their course, this will be a challenge. Fine. Other than that, with Nepal, the issue is the issue of Madheshis, right? वो सारे के सारे यहाँ common आएंगे. Common तो common रहेगा ही. FICN का issue है, yes. All the 4 issues are there, yes. Yes, yes. So yes, so FICN रहेगा इसमें. Yes, definitely. And even with Pakistan, this happens to be a constant challenge. Okay. A lot of Hawala transactions also keep on happening. So when I say FICN or Hawala, they will use certain routes. And in Nepal also, there is some alleged involvement of China also. Fine. Now, with Sri Lanka and Maldives, this you know, you talk more in the maritime. Sri Lanka mein we have a dispute, Kachativu Island. The issues of Sri Lankan fishermen. Okay. But overall, you think of how to secure our waters is the major point here, right? So which means the refugees and the fishermen, how to secure them. So यहाँ पे maritime security is more important for us. Similar issue with Maldives. How much of India's energy trade goes via Maldives? 80, huge, right? So this is why Maldives is also very important for India. And last you have is Myanmar. With Myanmar, remember Golden. Okay. Triangle of course will also be there, can affect Bangladesh also. Myanmar hai, with Myanmar specific remember Rakhine state, why? Rohingyas. And also remember we have scrapped FMR with Myanmar. Myanmar already in 2021 they had a military coup. So there is an issue that right now the military junta is controlling Myanmar. This is also there. But other than that, because again it's a bordering state and a lot of insurgent groups, they go directly to these sanctuaries. This is also a challenge. This is also why FMR was scrapped. So when you already know some common issues and some specific, the border would not be a challenge for you. Okay. Acha, you're asking, see, Sir Creek mein, if you just want to know, remember this is a estuary. Okay, and that too in the Rann of Kutch. Okay, what is an estuary? Abhay, aap batao. Meeting point of river and right. So river is fresh water, oceans is the salt water. So this Sir Creek is again a territorial dispute between these countries. And estuary etc. mein, if you know, if the river and sea is meeting, so around the Arabian Sea, this will always be a challenge. Which part is whose? So Sir Creek issue is actually a disputed area. Just abhi ke liye you can just remember the disputed estuary and the Rann of Kutch. Okay. And there are two differing perceptions here, which is why this is also disputed. People are generally aware of these two, but also remember Sir Creek issue. Okay. Now let's go back to our handout. This is an overview of the topics. Now almost all the other topics will make sense. Pehle is pe aate hain, and then I'll go to what are the strategies, etc. Now please come to key concerns. Now this is a more specialized way of telling what are the issues that are there in the borders. Sabse pehle issue hai security threats. Second is geographical and infrastructure constraints in the region. Third is migration and demographic, this we have seen. And fourth is administrative and technological gaps. Okay, right now we were seeing only country based issues and some common issues, but the issues are also beyond that. For example, what, let's say BSF, ITBP, what challenges they face from a development point of view, what are the challenges? So when you see it, this will give you an even better understanding. So number one, the concern on the borders, one is cross-border terrorism, persistent, and now notice with almost every point you have an example to support it. Uri 2016, Pulwama, okay, Pahalgam, this region 2025. So one issue is cross-border terrorism, we have seen it. Second is insurgency, northeast, and that too via Myanmar, which is why we say arms smuggling, it provides safe havens, this is also there. Drugs and armed trafficking, jahan pe golden likha, you can also write death, triangle and death crescent. So golden triangle and golden crescent, the countries also are mentioned. So these are the common issues, security threats. One, drugs and arms trafficking, one, insurgency, and one is cross-border terrorism. Common issues that we face. Now come to geographic and infrastructural constraints. This also we have seen. The terrain is very diverse. Okay. Dense forest hai, Himalayan heights, riverine belts. By the way, the same issue you will also see in left-wing extremism. There also you will see one issue is geographical. There are very dense forest. Okay, if you see the region of Dandakaranya, okay, other areas, there will be very dense forest. And when you cut the forest, we also say the issues of left-wing extremism being the issues of Jal, Jungle, Zameen. So one is diverse terrain. So in the Himalayas, be it the riverine belts, dense forests, this makes the movement of troops also difficult. Okay. Inadequate roads and logistics. So most of the Indian roads end before LAC, whereas China continues its forward connectivity. In fact, we know China is developing a lot of villages, also developing infrastructure and roads, and when India tries to do that, China makes an issue out of it. Fine. So this is one challenge, infrastructure. Now to counter that, you have something known as BRO. What is BRO? Border Roads Organization. It is also doing the work of connectivity, road construction and infrastructure. Okay. Now, you have migration and demographic stress. Okay. Now, illegal migration from Bangladesh and Myanmar. Ab isme do issues hain. One, a lot of migration from Bangladesh happened from the 1971 Bangladesh liberation, which continued to happen and which was the main sole issue of discontent in Assam. Okay. This is there, which is why later on in 1985 Assam Accord was signed. So to 1985 and 1971, long time. The agitation was also fairly long spread. And in this, one of the main concerns they wanted to create a cutoff date, okay, by which you can ultimately determine and then deport the people who are not meeting the conditions. Okay. This we will examine in more detail when I talk about in insurgency. दूसरा क्या हुआ, when the Assam NRC was carried out. NRC you would have known, नाम सुना होगा. What is NRC? National Register of Citizens. Fine. Is Aadhaar a proof of citizenship? Aadhaar is not. Fine. NRC में, so that the people who are there, this is again just to address demographic fears. This is also to understand who is voting. Because in Assam also one major thing was they did not want outsiders to become a part of politics. Fine. So when this exclusion happened, okay, immigration hai, exclusion hai, so this also led to more demographic stress. This also then became a more political issue also. So you also have to understand the border issues, the migration, human issues can also create a political challenge. Right? And illegal migration, always remember, can be a internal security issues. So specifically with respect to Rohingyas, there was a MHA report which had highlighted the specific internal security challenges because of the influx of Rohingya communities. Okay. Now, socio-economic pressure and identity conflict in border states. Yes, sahi hai. Border states, especially in northeast, what is there? The people have multiple tribal ethnic identities. If there are outsiders coming in, the chances or there is a challenge, they will feel to their identity. Fine. So, identity conflict is one because of the fear of outsiders taking up the resources, and already the resources are limited. Development is limited, infrastructure is limited. This will put a socio-economic pressure on the region. Yes. So, illegal migration or ये दोनों चीजें ultimately can also be a key concern in the border areas. One more dimension, administrative and technological gaps. And specifically for this, then we have certain programs to counter. So number one, you have overlapping jurisdiction. There are various forces, BSF, ITBP, Assam Rifles, plus local police. So local police and let's say the armed forces, okay, and even in certain cases, sometimes the army also has to be brought in. There is an overlapping jurisdiction. In fact, one of the things that we see again and again, that with CAPF, the issue is they are frequently asked to intervene. So that is why it leads to a lot of overlapping jurisdiction. एक और issue है, ये हमने देखा है. You will see this again and again. Inter-agency coordination issues. So there is an absence of unified command. Just to tackle this issue, in the army, you have now even CDS. Okay? You have theaterization. That is why army, navy, and the air force can be integrated. But the same issue happens to happen in the border areas. State police and their jurisdiction. The CAPF, the specific units, their jurisdiction. This is also a challenge. Fine. And this, of course, you can go through. यहाँ पे एक बनाना country, key force, length, of course, very factual in nature, but just for your understanding that what are the various forces. ICG जहाँ लिखा है, this is Indian Coast Guard and Navy, because this is the maritime front. So western sector, etc., different sectors are there. Who is cutting it? And remember, Bangladesh having the longest land boundary. Okay, Bangladesh. Now, there is a digital divide also. So communication in remote border areas is also a challenge, and this also affects the security forces. Now, if the infrastructure is weak, security forces cannot be deployed very fast. Okay? So this is a twin problem. One is, if the infrastructure is not good, the people will have discontent. Second issue, security forces can also not reach on time. So this is again a challenge that you face in the border areas. No, it is said we should explore this. In fact, we have also not signed the international, let's say, policy, or let's say this convention on migration. See, for example, despite signing of the international convention for refugees, we still allowed refugees, or let's say asylum, to Dalai Lama. Okay, even in 1971 war, and on humanitarian grounds, India has extended. Even for, let's say, the Citizenship Amendment Act, maybe the minorities which are persecuted in the bordering states, they can still come to India, and of course we have diluted for them the terms, but there is no national specific policy as such. Rohingyas में, of course, we have mentioned, उसी उनके लिए mention करा गया the internal security threat because of that. So the challenge is, internationally India is said that India does not have a uniform policy, but India also says that we still follow the principle of non-refoulement without being a signatory to the international convention. So it's a case by case basis. And specifically on this front, this is a very hotly debated topic right now. Kyun? Internationally, some years back, EU and USA also had a very accommodating stand when it comes to refugees and migration. But in the recent times, post-COVID, you have seen even they have flipped their stance. In many countries of EU, there is a rise of far-right parties, which have been very vocal of removing. अभी आपने देखा होगा recent H1B visa पे भी the $1 lakh fee, although उसपे भी नए clarifications आ रहे हैं. This is only for the new applicants, etc., etc. But there is the whole talk of how migration has, the discourse on migration in the recent years has changed. The countries now are not as accommodative as they were before, especially the West nations. Okay. Now, there are various things that the government has done, and यहाँ पे भी you have to understand the different things which are being carried out. पहली बात तो, there is a mention of certain programs. Okay. So broadly speaking, जैसे BADP को बोलते हैं Border Area Development Program. Now, just understand why these schemes have come, and you will understand what is the main takeaway here. देखो, नाम क्या है? Border Area Development. Initially, we thought of border areas to be a security problem. So we focused only on increasing the security. But then it was understood, unless we develop the border areas, which means better connectivity hogi, better roads, better infrastructure, health facilities, education, If you develop the regions well, most of the security problems can be tackled better. So now the approach of government on the border is not merely having more security forces. Now the approach is both development plus security, dono hai. So it's a pillar of development plus security, which is why, of course, you have border area development program, which talks about infrastructure development, integrated border management systems, यहाँ पे sensors, cameras, radars हैं, and just a more upgraded form of this is comprehensive integrated border management systems, which came into effect after the Madhukar Gupta committee recommendations. Throughout, there is a proposal for smart fencing, and we will see again and again BRO, Border Roads Organization, carrying out infrastructure, road development in these regions. So this is constantly happening, and we'll also see very shortly some of the details related to them. जैसे border area development है, एक अलग से border infrastructure management program BIM, etc., which also we'll see. This also tells you Indian approach. So wherever applicable, we are going for smart fencing. Wherever applicable, we are going for comprehensive integrated border management systems. By the way, this has been done on Pakistan side and on Bangladesh, CIBMS. Okay. So now the details and some of the points are also there in your handout. Let's have a look at it. Abhi ye rakho, abhi I'll just tell you some of them. Now let's see this in a very small point. A lot of things are mentioned. Now you have BRO, Border Roads Organization. Just remember one project each. For example, Atal Tunnel, Zojila Tunnel, it is carrying out BRO. Fine. On the northeast and specifically Arunachal, you have something known as Vibrant Villages Program. यहाँ पे the only keyword you have to remember, they will be the eyes and ear, and of course this is to counter China. This also we had seen in IR. This is Vibrant Villages Program. If I were to show you an image here, so they said this is your Vibrant Villages Program. Okay, this is India's China strategy, for example. Vibrant Villages Program is a very recent program, by the way. तो इसमें हो क्या रहा है इस प्रोग्राम में? Mainly, you will develop the border villages with very limited population and limited infrastructure. कहाँ पे? On the north border. And what would we do? अब ये सारे points common है ना. Even if you remember some of the points here, for any border management program, you can mention all these points. Because borders पे क्या करना है आपको? You have to have connectivity, road, even schools, okay, colleges, hospitals, a lot of things, connectivity, right? So housing hai, development, tourist centers, road, renewable energy, etc. So many such activities are being planned in the Vibrant Villages Program, and it is going to counter which country? China. ठीक है? So basically, eyes and ears hai, and second is the objective is to counter China. Fine. So you're talking of infrastructure development. If you develop this, this will create economic opportunities. It will also create livelihood opportunities for people. You will promote tourism. Why? Because tourism, your tourist centers are also getting promoted here. More people will come. Social, what is the meaning of social infrastructure? Okay, think from which means schools and colleges. Health means hospitals. Because conventionally infrastructure, people think of only tall skyscrapers, big buildings. That is physical. But equally important is social infrastructure, right? And of course the focus is on, because these are bordering areas, sustainable development. But main चीज है, ये तो हम कर ही रहे हैं. Strategically remember, counter China, eyes and ears. This will be your eyes and ears. If there is a substantial presence, this is going to be there, right? स्मार्ट फेंसिंग, जस्ट गिव मी 1 minute, अभी विल टॉक अबाउट इट. बेसिकली देखो स्मार्ट फेंसिंग ऐसे देखते हैं. यू हैव सीन अ लॉट ऑफ हाउसेस जहां पे ऊपर से बार्ब वायर होगा. ओके, सो बार्ब वायर सिंपली इज व्हाट, लेट्स से दिस इज द बाउंड्री wall. On this there are steel wires. This is the normal fencing. Normally nobody will want to cross it. अब smart fencing क्या हो सकती है आप सोचो? Some current, okay, maybe proper CCTVs, etc. Proper tracking and monitoring. The moment you enter, some sirens start to blaze, alarms start to happen. So smart fencing is just you add some of these elements. That is smart fencing. ठीक है? And this is what is happening, just for your reference. Vibrant villages, for example, Arunachal Pradesh में. So we are developing these bordering states जहाँ पे population is limited, number one. And second, there is limited infrastructure. So we are developing them as simple as that. So vibrant villages, because it is recent, and by the way, this was also asked by UPSC in 2023. तो उसी साल की स्कीम है, almost उसी साल पूछ लिया था मेंस में. And next year they ask you again a question on border management, because topics are limited in internal security and they have to ask you 4 questions. So which is why if we do these limited topics well, if we understand the core objective, you will be able to write a very good answer. Okay, so I'm showing some of the extra information to you just so that you have some visual memory also what all is happening in this case. Okay, now we were talking about, but let's go through this and some extra points if there are any, I'll tell you. You have BADP, Border Area Development Program. All of this is mentioned in small, but when you have to, if you have to expand them, these will be 5 specific points. Infrastructure, education, health, solar power, etc. You can talk of road connectivity, etc. This is Border Area Development Program. Okay. Now, Forest Conservation Act originally is of 1980. This has been amended recently. और यहाँ पे भी है that in your strategic borders, now this diversion can happen, which means there is an exception that is given. Normally if there is a forest conservation, if you have to cut down forests, you have to take the permission of the center. Kyun? Because forest is a part of concurrent list. How many of you are aware of this? Forest wildlife is a part of concurrent list. Earlier it was a part of state list. By which amendment was this done? ठीक है. So now it is a part of concurrent list. If the forest or trees are to be cut down or diverted, you need permission of center. But specifically 100 kilometers etc. on the borders, you have given an exemption specifically for security purposes. Okay, so this is one. Now second is modern institutional mechanisms. Now we already know porous borders hai, right, trafficking hai, etc. So it will be very difficult to guard, which is why there is a creation of ICPs, integrated checkposts. Now if you read any article on Nepal, any article on Bangladesh, we are creating ICPs. With ICPs what will happen? Your trade will get better. अगर trade better कैसा होगा? That means you will stop the smuggling. Why is the trade not good? Because smuggling happens a lot, right? So trade is better, plus you have better security facilities in the integrated checkpost. So this basically means you have modernized the trading collection centers, integrated checkposts. Other than that, you have BIM, Border Infrastructure Management Scheme, which means fencing hai, roads, lighting, etc. That is made better, right? BIM. Then you also have India-Bangladesh Coordinated Border Management Plan, etc. Joint patrolling, real-time coordination. This can happen. Ab joint patrolling is useful activity. We also have the similar with Nepal also. We also have similar with Bhutan and even with Myanmar. When you have joint patrolling, in fact, if you remember, Myanmar में हमने पढ़ा था Operation Sunrise. Operation Sunrise was carried out by the joint operations of Indian Army as well as the Myanmar Army to remove the insurgent groups from Myanmar. So joint patrolling, intelligence sharing, more and more if this is done, you will fight or you will tackle the common challenges. Okay, so this is just one example. Now, you have CIBMS. तो यहाँ पे thermal sensors, UAVs, infrared radar, satellite inputs, all of that, this is there. How it looks like, I'll just show this to you. This is CIBMS है. ओके, लेजर बैरियर्स, अंडरग्राउंड सर्वेलेंस, थर्मल, CCTVs. तो नाम क्या है इसका? कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव integrated border management system. So all the best modern technologies which are there, that have been integrated. Okay, and the main idea is secure the borders. Now we already know many cases में border क्या है? Porous है. Geography is very difficult. So as much as possible we are trying to use technology. Why do you want to use thermal and night vision? Simple tracking in the nights. It is difficult and challenging. Better surveillance mechanism. Okay, better so underground monitoring. Maybe somebody has had some mines. Okay, laser barriers. Ab laser barriers can be an example again of smart fencing. So laser barriers in some of the movies also you would have seen. Okay, jab within the bank if they have to carry out a heist, so a lot of laser barriers are also there, right? So remember, CIBMS is with Pakistan as well as Bangladesh. And main thing क्या है? We are developing this from a technological viewpoint. Okay. So use of ground sensors, radars, UAVs, etc. What are UAVs? Unmanned aerial vehicles. Can UAV be used to dismantle internal security? कैसे? सबसे पहला तो surveillance. Second thing is, हाँ चलो, can drug smuggling be happening? They can be aerial. Okay, arms smuggling, yes, and they can also be used for surveillance, intelligence collection. And second, you don't have to send a physical person, and even if you drop them, let's say kill it, so there can be swarm of drones. Right now you're seeing countries going for more and more drone strikes, drone surveillance. So even that can be mentioned as a point. Yeah, ठीक है. Okay. So again same thing, how the objective is real-time awareness, securing border security, prevent infiltration. Okay, and when you are going for smart fencing, CIBMS, main thing is reducing reliance on human surveillance. What is the problem of human surveillance? One is risky, but second is can be prone to corruption. Okay, and cannot reach the difficult terrains. Yes or no? So when I'm saying, because even with the best of security, when trafficking happens, so there is also nexus. Yes or no? If wildlife trafficking is happening, if human trafficking is happening, drugs trafficking, so sometimes there is a nexus also. The both sides know some trafficking is going to happen. So you want to eliminate human angle, so reducing the reliance on human surveillance. Lastly, of course, smuggling hai, trafficking hai. So this will help in better intelligence gathering. This can also be mentioned. Yes or no? So comprehensively you see a lot of points here in CIBMS. So it's a high-tech surveillance and monitoring. Now this question, for example, is more specific. Other question ऐसे भी आता है, how can technology, for example, be used for better border management? You can borrow points from CIBMS. Even in the recent Operation Sindoor, you saw the huge use of drones by both the sides. Pakistan got a lot of drones from Turkey, by the way. Yes. So that is also there, right? Now come to this. CIBMS, you understand? Then there is this bold QIT. This also basically is smart fencing. So the common points you have seen here are also related to this. In fact, bold QIT. So think this is type of a technological solution. Then different drones, let's say Heron drones, RESAT satellites, better radars. So for better surveillance, tunnel detection, mapping, anti-drone systems. तो जो last point है हमारा वो है smart surveillance and technology integration. Right? To improve anything, if I want to improve the cyber security, if I want to improve the military, one thing has to be based on technology. Yes or no? So technology mein one of the best example is CIBMS. A part of this is also this bold QIT. Right? So here the only thing you have to remember is certain keywords. If you mention your keywords, your job is done. Right? Okay. We have already seen this, but just a couple of points in case. जैसे इसमें steps taken to, one is, let's say there is a specific department of border management which was created. And why was this created? To tackle borders specifically. Fine. This way, if there is any point that is missing out, you can just add it. Maybe one can be this. Second, this also is there, but remember the principle of one border, one force. Idea is to reduce the coordination issues, to have clear roles and responsibilities. So you have, let's say, different ones, BSF, ITBP, SSB, all of that. Main thing is you want to streamline border security while doing that. So the principle is one border, one force. Okay. Infrastructure development has happened over a period of time. आपने सुना है, let's say BADP, Border Area Development Program, a lot of these schemes. So we have been building fences. Okay, we have, and because of this, we have reduced infiltration, smuggling, movement of contraband. What is contraband? Check. Okay. Now, bold QIT, I've told you, this is for, let's say, Assam. It is a part of CIBMS. And the full form is Border Electronically Dominated QRT Interception, basically, right? So, यहाँ पे सिर्फ याद रखो, this is there for border surveillance. You will use these points just as examples. A question है ना, technology. How can technology be used to secure the borders? I will use these examples. UAVs, okay, drones, thermal sensors, radars, etc., etc. If such a question comes, for example, right? And also remember coastal border management. In fact, specifically because of this, the roles and responsibility of state police. I'll tell you when I do maritime security, state police. I will talk about Indian Coast Guard and the Indian Navy. This was streamlined. Okay, but this is a point, coastal border management, we'll see in more detail in maritime security. This is a topic just after this. Till here, are we able to follow? Okay. Now, this dimension is keeping in mind of the emerging nature of issue. Okay. Till now, UPSC has asked you questions on securing borders. Number one, what is border infrastructure management program? The other kind of question that can be asked, this has been not asked till now, the role of technology in border management. Okay. अब इसमें भी generally we are aware, we know yes, technology has a very important role, but on what points would you be writing your answer? And हर एक point पे क्या application है, that we can also talk about. Fine. So there are various points here, more than enough to write a good answer. And then you can also link it to some other countries. जैसे Israel की भी बात करेंगे इसमें, USA, other countries. So that will give you a very comprehensive understanding. That many a times a question is asked that India is facing border challenges, but some other countries also face border challenges. What better they are doing? Can we adopt them? Right? So सबसे पहला है drones. We have discussed this. What is UAV? Okay. So they can be used in surveillance in inaccessible terrain. Okay. Again, this reduces the reliance on human surveillance. Yes. This can be one. And you can give more examples of how drones are also being used in CIBMS. In fact, ये सारी चीजें we are already using at CIBMS. Now, second is thermal infrared sensors, again for night monitoring. Satellite imaging, you can give examples of RESAT. For intrusion detection mapping. By the way, satellites can also be used for human trafficking also, for cattle trafficking also, right? In fact, satellites से तो आपको यहाँ तक भी पता चल सकता है that you can even track your forest fires. You can even track the changes in chlorophyll. अब आप सोचो. Fine. So again, this can be done. So intrusion detection mapping can be done here. So जहाँ पे लिखा है satellite imaging, you can again use, let's say, technologies like remote sensing. You can use terms like GIS, geographical information systems. Okay. Now AI, artificial intelligence and data analytics, there is a project Him Shakti. अब इसमें क्या है? Predictive petrol optimization. Now, by the way, AI was also again still used in the border management and specifically in the aerial combat. Even in the recent Operation Sindoor, we had the use of this. But I'll tell you what is the meaning of predictive petrol optimization. देखो, when the patrols are happening, many times they cannot be coordinated, which means they can have overlap. Second, ऐसा भी हो सकता है, patrols are happening in some regions, but some regions are blind spots. So if I know the movement of the troops, if I know the overall area, I can constantly use data analytics and AI to dynamically monitor which areas need more patrolling, which areas need less patrolling. So that can help in predictive patrol optimization, that we can also know trends. In 3 months, 6 months, this is an area which can have more infiltration. On these specific days, these areas have more influx of cattle, etc. So I can use AI and data analytics, right? Laser fencing, vibration sensors, etc. again are related to technology only, same dimension hai, and this will improve physical border security. क्योंकि limit है construction की, how many fencing can you do, and it is not absolute, which means people can still overcome it. Okay, so this is one. Vibration sensors hai, maybe better CCTVs, all of that. And lastly, important point is integrated control centers, so that you have real-time command and communication, and this will be connected. So if, and by the way, if the infiltration will happen, you have to imagine it will not just happen from one say. Many times infiltration has to happen, people target multiple locations. So how will you coordinate? Let's say if the infiltration is starting from the west, northwest of India, but maybe 1 hour later it is also happening in the part of northeast, sometime also in the coastal security. So you should have integrated control centers. If you give example, if I give you example of USA, etc., they have very predominant integrated control centers, very good intelligence sharing, सब कुछ real time हो रहा है, right? So all of this can help. Fine. Now there are of course global models. USA having the lot of fixed towers, thermal and radar. Israel can be a good example. AI enabled fences, motion, facial recognition. Okay, and you can again talk about Iron Dome. Okay, does India have something similar to an Iron Dome? Which one? No, do we have S400? No, I mean, do we have an indigenous variant? Akash. Okay, so for that you also need to know there is something known as Project Kusha by DRDO. From the Project Kusha, DRDO wants to make India's own S400 and India's own THAAD. But of course this will take maybe 3-4 years to happen. KUSHA, Project Kusha by DRDO. To make India's own S400, India's own. You know what is THAAD? THAAD? That is US made. Okay. So in fact US wanted India to take THAAD. Okay. Oh, no, this is just one point. This point I'll also discuss when I do military modernization and indigenization. Right now you have a dependence, for example, but this project is for India's own. It is. Now the last one is EU. So again there is a Eurosur mission having its own satellites and its drones. Right? Now, while it is not mentioned here, I want to know what challenges will technology deployment in border areas face in India? क्या challenge होगा इसको, इन सबको? चलो ठीक है. One is, while on paper it looks very good, actual deployment is not very easy. One of the reasons you have to think of, this hugely depends on internet connectivity. Yes? So for most of these areas which are very much inaccessible, it may be possible that you don't have a strong infrastructure to support it. Any other issue? Coast. Coast is challenge, but more specific, what is the challenge in that? Right, and here also see, some of them are not indigenous. So there is, of course, when you deploy them, number one, there will be dependence on from which country you're taking it. There will not be direct technology transfer also, वो भी challenge है. Third है the issue of the connectivity, be it 5G, etc. And specifically in this context, if you remember, किसने सुना है satellite based internet? You've heard about it? So specifically, the satellite-based internet will be useful in the remote regions. But it will depend how and when it is going to be deployed, because in many of these regions, the internet connectivity may not be as good. So you may have to be dependent on satellite. And last is they because it's a technology. Technology may, the dependence of, or let's say the cyber security threat is also there. So which means your systems have to be very robust. Best levels of encryption that is there in the market, continuously updated. That has to be happen. Okay. So challenges हर चीज में होंगे. Because I have not written this explicitly here, but the challenges that we have just discussed, you should also write it somewhere, right? So these are the global models. Then what is the way forward here? अब यहाँ पे you should have a unified command structure modeled on US DHS. DHS is Department of Homeland Security. Both in Israel and USA, you have unified command structure. One challenge we've already outlined is the coordination between the forces is missing. Despite having one border, one force, you still have a conflict with the state police. Intelligence is not happening real time, वो भी challenge है. Then you have to prioritize tech deployment, especially in the regions where infiltration is very high. ठीक है, Jammu है, Punjab, Assam, and especially some of these regions may also have a hostile terrain. Okay, precisely that is also why infiltration is also high. Okay. Now, indigenous innovation, this factor has to be there, because in technology you want to be self-reliant as much as possible, right? So you can leverage startups. There is an Idea Forge IDEX ka program hai, which also we'll see in the second half. We'll also see this. And this program is specifically for indigenization of defense technologies, IDEX. And lastly, we will include community and locals. Here also, ultimately you cannot solely depend on technology. You still have to have locals as intelligence assets. So that will also help. Incentive where development linkages, etc. This is there. Additionally, a couple of other points. Overall for borders, what do we want to have? Accelerate the projects, especially the all-weather roads, your checkposts, so BRO projects. So overall, if the development of the borders happens in a continuous manner, what will happen because of this? India's presence will be better. Okay, so more connectivity, better. Additionally, with the countries where the issue is there, you have to address it diplomatically also. We tried to do that with Nepal, we tried to do that with Myanmar. In fact, we carried out joint army operations also whenever needed. So irritants, be it fencing or migration, you can address them through dialogue, right? And lastly, for example, this is a term that you can use again and again. So you have to have a data-driven strategy now, okay? So be it surveillance, movement, predictions, resource deployment, we can also talk about this. Data-driven strategy. All right. Now just to recap, what are some of the schemes, etc. that you have seen here? So BADP, Border Area Development Program, IBMS, CIBMS, Bold QIT, Smart Fencing, BRO's initiative, Vibrant Villages Program. Okay. So now see, you all now know the essence behind the projects, the challenges. You'll make your answer specific by mentioning the specific schemes also. Okay, only in one instance UPSC has asked specifically vibrant villages, but generally speaking, if they ask you broadly about border and border development, you have to drop on the schemes also, right? You can also bring in the global best models, technology as a determinant in the recent times, the challenges, and ultimately a way forward. Okay? So this is one, and a direct continuation of this topic is if you move one page. First, let's do the coastal security एक बार, and after that I'll come to coastal means sorry maritime. I think just one page later, right? Okay, maritime security. because both these two are related, and then we'll go to drug menace. In this topic, just put a dash and also write, because the biggest flashpoint here is 2611. So first we'll have a look at this. Okay. Now, why maritime security is important, this we know. What is the overall coastal length? So big, okay. So for India, not only securing its land borders is important, it is equally important for India to secure the maritime, okay. Now, what are the challenges which this maritime faces? पहली बात तो maritime में the borders can never be resolved. You have IMBL, international, this international boundary, this maritime line, international maritime boundary line, but it also has challenges, yes or no? So maritime security, first you need to know, or let me think, I think it is already there in one of the slides. Okay, this is there, इसी को एक बार देखते हैं. Some of the points we've already seen. The challenges of maritime security, and here again 15 years, but this question was expected, but this question has not been asked yet, that what has India done after, okay, what changes have happened. So सबसे पहले इस पे आते हैं, maritime security challenges पे. Now, some of all these terms you now understand, some examples are also there. One of the issue is piracy, and another issue is, let's say, armed robbery. When I say piracy, this can happen in any part of either Arabian or even Bay of Bengal. So broadly speaking, Indian Ocean can be impacted. Second is the issue of terrorism, and the common example which you need to know is 2611. In maritime security, there will be maritime boundary disputes also, right? What is EEZ? Exclusive Economic Zone, okay? Now, if we talk about UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on Law of Seas, right? So let's say whatever state is there, you have territorial waters. So पहले होता है internal waters, then territorial waters, contiguous zone, and ultimately you have. So EEZ is up to 200 nautical miles, and beyond that you have high seas, okay? So कुछ terms हैं which you should remember. Territorial waters, contiguous zone, so 12 nautical, from the coast to 12 nautical miles, 12 territorial waters. Contiguous zone, another 12 nautical miles. Almost 200 nautical miles is exclusive economic zone, and beyond that is high seas. Now the issue is, many countries, this is not properly demarcated, fine. So between this there will be a challenge on maritime boundaries. India ke case maybe, beyond a certain point you also have the Indian Navy that is patrolling. And think of other country also, unki bhi Navy patrol kar rahi hogi. So if this area is not properly demarcated, this also is the issue we face with Sri Lanka. So there will be a maritime boundary dispute also. This is also something we have to know, fine. So there is a maritime boundary dispute that is happening. You have illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing. Illegal, unreported, unregulated, fine. And the fishing, in fact, you know, this is an issue with Sri Lanka also. But in general, maritime section में ये challenge होता है. Other than that, smuggling and trafficking. And when I say smuggling, you'll be surprised, one of the biggest drug trade happens from maritime regions. That is why some time back, Operation Samudragupta was launched, and you'll be surprised, this operation is by Indian Navy and NCB. So Samudragupta में क्या हो रहा था? The huge amounts of drug was being, so we wanted to stop this to happen. That is Operation Samudragupta. In fact, this operation I'll again tell you when in the drug menace, जो इसके बाद का एक article है. And you also have environmental threats like oil spills. You have marine pollution. So these are the major issues that happen in maritime. Conventionally, not just India, but most of the countries, their internal security was based only on territorial land, okay, only on the borders. That is why an emerging area. So internal security also has to keep this in mind, and this is not limited only to terrorism. There are also new threats that are coming. Yes or no? So first of all, just see this. What are the threats here? And there are also two terms. Till now, in borders, etc., we were facing traditional challenges, right? So that is known as traditional threats. You also have non-traditional threats that are coming in, which means environmental threats, etc., climate change. These are non-traditional threats. Digital or cyber, these are non-traditional threats. So country must evaluate and keep on upgrading itself. Are you fishing? May see, this happens globally. By the way, this is an issue. This is also discussed in WTO as well. Okay, so here between any of the countries overall, this will also impact blue economy. Okay, so IUU fishing, it is illegal, unreported, unregulated. It is overall maritime because coastal communities are dependent on this. Bycatch will also get reduced. Okay, the state will not get the whole revenues, etc. So this can be bilateral also, but overall maritime mein, this is a common issue. Chinese that is again related to this, and this will then intersect. So Sri Lankan case mein both these things also intersect because IMBL is not clearly demarcated. So Sri Lankan and Indian fishermen, they also have an issue because of this. Yes. वो कौन से? पहला वर्ड नहीं सुना रहा मुझे. अच्छा वो लिखा तो है आपने? सामने तो लिखा है. ठीक है? Is this clear? Now let's go back. Oh, so we were here. Now, if you see this diagram, is it clearly made in your handout? Okay. So what I'll tell you, जो लिखा है ना, coastal security system, etc. इस diagram के नीचे you will have to write after 2611. After 2611, what has happened? Clear demarcation has been made of who is going to man which area, and this is a very simple diagram you can draw, which means सबसे पहले है जो state police, marine police, they can guard up to 12 nautical miles from the shore. Beyond that, you have Indian Coast Guard up to 200 nautical miles, and beyond that you have Indian Navy. अब clear demarcation है who is going to guard which area, right? Earlier the challenge was these points were not demarcated, so there was always a challenge that which area who is going to man, and there are continuous exercises between them for joint patrolling and even for sharing of intelligence. आ रहा है कुछ समझ में? Are you able to see? नहीं आ रहा है तो I'll speak. See, first this one is marine police. Second one is ICG, Indian Coast Guard, second circle. Third circle is Indian Navy. So one is up to 12 nautical miles, second is 12 to 200 nautical miles, and Navy wala hai beyond 200 nautical miles. No, but they have this overall area from the shore to 12 nautical miles. So but point is this, in this some overlap and some movement will be there, right? So यहाँ पे ऐसा नहीं कि beyond this only you'll start to see them. Sometimes joint patrolling can be happening. Let's say the marine police is not enough in number, so they can also fill in place. So that is something practical. But why this was made for you, important thing is, now functional roles are made more clear. This happened after 2611. Fine. Now, let's quickly come on this part. First of all, why is coastal security important? What is the issue here? Let's quickly see this. Marine, this one is for, we're talking of state, right? Other than that, you have the Indian Coast Guard and you also have the Navy. Yeah. Okay. Now, please come to coastal security. Why this is important? Most of the points we get to know. सबसे पहले let's see the strategic and security points. So number one, the location. Okay, now for example, think of India. We want to safeguard not only India's security, but we want to safeguard Indian Ocean. When I say coastal and maritime security, remember Sagar. Sagar doctrine. What does Sagar doctrine say? Security and growth for all. So it means India not only has to safeguard itself, but in the Indian Ocean, India says we want to be a net security provider. So in that sense, India's security must be improved. Other nations' security should also be improved. Yes? Proximity to volatile regions. Pehli baat to again, remember volatile when I say, think of Maldives. Okay, think of other regions. The terrain is also challenging in maritime also. Right? Because you will have certain waves. Okay? The terrain may be an issue. Terrain, by that, of course, remember the water, basically the ocean. This can be a challenge. There can be certain critical installations. Okay, think of. Okay, right? Maybe the fiber optical networks. Think of certain powers. The basic energy related. Okay, gas installations, etc. That is there. You have high value ports. Any example of ports? Think of Mumbai, think of Gujarat, important ports, etc. Right? Now, you have rising maritime threats. All the threats major we have seen. So this is why you also have to safeguard this. Any threats that you can tell me? Jo dekhe humne? So Red Sea is also one, but what threats have we seen? Right? Or कोई example जो अभी just the examples we saw. Illegal fishing and no with respect to maritime security. अभी देखा हमने कौन कौन से challenges? Smuggling, piracy, okay, or trafficking. Yes. Then another issue is you have to counter regional challenges, and the best example here is, right? And what is the issue with China? Remember China's influence in Sri Lanka, Hambantota port. China is increasing influence in Maldives, and overall with its BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, इसमें भी there is a maritime component. So this can also impact India's internal security. Yes, this can be a challenge. Coastal security is also vital for environmental protection. Is this also true? Right? So if safeguarding of fisheries, aquaculture, and ultimately blue economy, okay, can happen here better. Now, next are just strategic influence, global security, etc. यहाँ पे again remember foundation for naval strength. Okay, so strategic influence means again if India is able to safeguard its coastal security. So again, Indian Ocean can become India's ocean. Global security collaboration, you can give examples like Colombo Security Dialogue. Okay, यहाँ पे फिर से IORA, BIMSTEC. So remember the coastal nations face similar problems. अब हमने जो भी है हमने एक दो और एग्जाम्पल लिख सकते हैं. We can also write about tsunamis. We can write about cyclones. When these happen, the neighboring or let's say the other countries are responding. For example, if there's a cyclone or tsunami around India, India happens to be one of the first responders in relief. So these issues can also be a part of ensuring coastal security. So for coastal security, remember, even platforms like BIMSTEC are there. तो यहाँ पे भी you see an intersection of IR. So coastal security का जो question है, maritime security का, it can be a question of IR also, it can be a question of internal security also. Because these issues are not isolated. The coastal countries will have similar issues, right? Foundations for naval strength. Remember IONS, Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. Similar countries like India, Japan, Australia and US, they have Quad. In Quad, they have Malabar exercise. Okay? And by the way, when I say Quad, Quad का मतलब सिर्फ ये नहीं है to counter China. Quad is also there for disaster relief. Quad has multiple objectives. So this can also be related to coastal security. Other than that, these points we also know. Trade dependence, right? Think of Maldives, think of trade dependence. Think of Strait of Malacca, yes or no? So coasts have to be made secure. Maldives se kya, what we recall? 80% of energy trade and 50% of overall trade of India goes through Maldives. Energy import reliance. So think of Gulf se bhi jo major trade hai, that will happen via the ports and via the coast. Fine. Marine resource utilization. Any example that you can give me? Polymetallic nodules, ठीक है, seaweeds etc. we can take example. Okay. These are very important. In fact, the new nature of conflict will also be on maritime. इसीलिए exclusive economic zones में fight है. For example, if India wants to mine resources in central Indian Ocean bed, we may have a conflict with some other country. And who gives this permission? ISA, International Seabed Authority. Okay. Now, sea lane protection. Remember SLOCs. So, if the coasts are secure, the sea lanes are also secure. Trade can easily happen. तो आपको लगेगा this vision is also related to India's vision of Indo-Pacific. This is again a topic direct intersection with IR. Right, sea lanes protection, and lastly is coastal infrastructure growth, which means again availability. What is the scheme which India has with respect to ports? Sagarmala. What is Bharatmala? Roads. Sagarmala, Sagar se oceans, and Mala here think of this and in terms of the growth of ports. So you can also link this with Sagarmala scheme. Of course, positive. That is India's sphere of influence. No, but India has always maintained, why when we say India's ocean, we have said we are net security provider. We have not said that we will colonize your country. Okay, so from that vision it is there. So for example, when India says Indo-Pacific, aisa thodi na, the entire Indo-Pacific is India's. Our vision is free, open, inclusive, Indo-Pacific, right? So that is one example. And for that, जब भी ऐसा doubt है, आप सोचो what are India's credential? If China says entire ocean is mine, then the countries may have a doubt that you may create some artificial dots and lines and you may claim these areas as your own. But India has never been imperialist in that sense. Okay, is this fine? Now let's talk about initiatives here. Okay, chalo. First I'll come to this. This is slightly easier, and then this is in more detail. You've seen Indian maritime security initiatives, right? Now, we have been speaking about them sometime. Sagar, but Sagar has been upgraded also to become, and Sagar means security and growth for all, and India's aspirations of being a net and when you say net security provider, it overall means the entire region will have better trade, won't have piracy, would not have challenges in general. So this is an important part. IONSS, an Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. What is IORA? Indian Ocean Rim Association, ठीक है? Naval Symposium is more specific, right? The navies can also interact, which means better coordination, patrolling and joint exercises. Rim Association is not only limited to naval, but यहाँ पे broad layer of cooperation can happen. ठीक है? You see these bodies in more detail in your prelims also. अभी के लिए from the name also you can guess. Rim Association, if there are two countries, they will collaborate not just on navy front, but they will also collaborate on human assistance, डिजास्टर रिलीफ, कोऑपरेशन है सर, मेरियस, तो ये ज्यादा मल्टी लेयर्ड है. बट फॉर द डिफेंस और बेसिकली फॉर joint, let's say naval operations, you also have naval symposium. At maritime, at the global level, you have anti-piracy operations. जैसे अभी, for example, when I say, you should also remember, Red Sea was facing challenges because of Houthis. Houthis are in which, from which area? And we have seen Houthis also in the context of, who supports Houthis? Iran. Iran supports two more H. Hamas and Hezbollah. Hamas is in which area? Gaza. And where is Hezbollah? Lebanon. ठीक है. Anti-piracy operations, and it is not limited only to this Red Sea. Okay, think of also Somalia. Think of a lot of African regions, Horn of Africa. So main thing is anti-piracy operations are happening between countries. There is UNCLOS. What is UNCLOS? United Nations Convention for Laws of Seas. अभी भी जो हमने देखा 200 nautical miles, this and that, all of that is coordinated via UNCLOS. Okay. So if there is more implementation of UNCLOS, this will be better. But this does not happen like that. This may be one of the issue is when China is there. China makes the claim of 9-dash line. It is not agreeing to UNCLOS. If this matter goes to PCA, Permanent Court of Arbitration, वहाँ पे भी they do not agree to it. Which means that is why remember, global maritime security has multiple challenges of external state actors also, non-state actors also. तो pirates हैं, ये terrorists हैं, ये सारे क्या हैं? These are non-state actors. So when you see this, India's, so basically remember this is also to counter state, yeah, external state actors. Predominantly in your mind think of China, there can be others also, and plus non-state actors. So anti-piracy, etc. So think of Africa also, think of Somalia, different groups, the pirates. Okay. Now there is something known as this IFC, and the full form is IFC IOR. This actually gives us real-time information. इसका सेंटर भी यहीं पे NCR में ही है. Real-time information related to Indian Ocean. This is basically for information. Okay, real-time coordinates, basic operations which are happening. So there is IFC IOR, International Fusion Center IOR, for real-time information. Because ultimately, if there's an information gap, I need some information. So one of that is IFC. So India has one of the centers here in NCR only, Gurgaon maybe, or I think very close by. The office is there of this. These are some operations, initiatives. But if we want to go in more detail, now we can go into this particular page. यहाँ पे there will be more factual details also. ठीक है? Acha, one second. Acha, this diagram is not here. Acha, this you can see. One second, if I see it in my slide. Acha, ठीक है. So we'll see it from here only. Now, before you understand these initiatives, again, please keep in mind, India post 2611 made a lot of changes. Okay. One way to understand is this. What we have done, we have created some new institutions. We have had enhanced surveillance. We have had training and identification and special forces and projects. हर एक में कुछ points है. You cannot remember all these points. So we'll see the gist and the main understanding here, right? But if I were to ask you, what changes has India done with after 2611? Any points that come to your mind? And I don't want very specific points. What would India have done? चलो NIA people know, ठीक है. Energy, okay. Anything else? देखो, these are points. इसके ऊपर का point सोचो. What you are saying when I say NIA, what you want to say is a specific, so institutional, a new investigative agency has been created. That is the point you want to make. तो वैसे सोचो. यूज ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी नाउ वेयर एंड हाउ, पॉइंट सही है, नहीं आईओटी तो अलग, हाँ इंटेलिजेंस शेयरिंग फाइन, बट हाउ, एनी आइडिया, वो स्पेसिफिक पॉइंट्स आई विल टेल यू, पर पॉइंट ठीक है दोनों का, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल आईएफसी आईओआर एटसेट्रा आर देयर फॉर बेटर इंफॉर्मेशन शेयरिंग, strengthening the laws, so basically a lot of laws and not just that, the bodies and their mandate has been improved, fine. So I'll tell you two ways to address these kind of questions. One way is what I'll show you and then I'll go back to this, ठीक है. अब देखो what has India done, we'll see this. सबसे पहले just see how we are presenting our points, right, because here it is not just information for us. Information anyways after 1 or 2 readings you will understand, but पहले देखो हम information को organize कैसे कर रहे हैं, ठीक है. So we have had organizational initiatives, we'll see how. There are some technical initiatives that are being done and there are also procedural initiatives, okay. Now at the organizational level, and think of organization also as institutional, the role of Indian Navy, the role of Indian Coast Guard, has that been now properly outlined, can we say, right? So there is better of this organizational, I'll just simply write in terms of role. Role and responsibility is now clearer. Earlier this was not the case. First point. Second, we have created a maritime security coordinator. Coordinator का काम क्या है? Every challenge में we are seeing coordination gaps. The work of the maritime security coordinator is to ensure coordination between the various wings, can we say this, right? And of course we were writing and talking about even this can be mentioned. So there is a maritime security coordinator to ensure organizational efficiency, roles and clarity of Indian Navy and ICG, and of course NIA and SG created. Technically what is happening, so we are seeing you better surveillance systems, okay, which means more technology will be used. पहला होगा technology, and second, this will also become 24/7. When I say advanced naval technology, maritime में, you know submarines, and you will also know stealth submarines. Very recently US used B-2 bombers. What is special about B-2 bombers? So normal radar में, would you see a B-2 bomber? That is stealth. Similarly, advanced naval, so better fleets, more modernization of this is being used, okay. So use of submarines, stealth submarines, better patrolling has happened. So technically this is an important point. And this point, integrated command and control centers, ये point मैं बार बार इसलिए repeat कर रहा हूँ because in the new nature of conflict you have to have integrated command and control centers, yes. Then there are certain procedural initiatives, some procedures have also changed, which means now there is a SOP. What is SOP? Standardized operating procedure. पहले क्या था, बहुत चीजें ad hoc. One of the criticism earlier of Indian security approaches, it was, or same criticism you'll also see in disaster management, that most of our approach was ad hoc in nature, fine. So one is now you have proper SOPs. Second क्या है? Better legal and regulatory frameworks, which is why we can also bring in certain enhanced or better acts. NIA has a specific act, okay. So better regulatory frameworks have also, so better updation has also happened. Now we'll see that later. अभी जो हमारा box बना हुआ है उसमें और specific points हैं. And lastly, continuous training and capacity building, okay. We will have, let's say, सागर प्रहारी बल, वो सारा आपके box में बना हुआ है. We'll see now, okay. So training and capacity building क्यों चाहिए? How to identify some of the patrolling or let's say new fishing boats. If you remember, the terrorists entered like they disguised themselves like a fisherman. They used boats, the boats were not registered. वो आए वहाँ से and they had entered. This is why now every boat has been registered mandatorily. So a lot of things have changed, but if you have to analyze it, this is the one way to analyze it. Otherwise, you may write Sara 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 करके, but this will give you a better way of organizing your points. तो जब भी आप अपने हैंडआउट को पढ़ोगे, आप बस देखो इंफॉर्मेशन ऑर्गेनाइज कैसे हो रही है. Right? So for various points, we've given you different areas too. Maybe some mind map is there or some flow chart is there, an organization. Otherwise, easily one can write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But now you get better marks when you better organize your points. Fine? So क्या करा है हमने? हाँ, you were saying कोई पूछ रहा था? हाँ. No, you are thinking of nuclear supplies group. हाँ. अच्छा, okay, sorry then. So then only just write NIA, NIA. हाँ, तो रुक जाओ, just I think I'll, or maybe there's some change was there, so maybe I'm referring to that. 1 second. Then on that front you are right, so just write NIA. So I'll make this correction then. Only the NIA will write. ठीक है? नहीं, कोबरा बटालियन तो फिर अलग हो जाएगा. वो अभी अब देखेंगे आगे LWE में. There has been a change with respect to NSG here, maybe, so we'll also see that. But creation वाले में तो then you are right, है ना? Okay. Now let's come back. Now, you have the creation of NIA, the National Investigation Agency, and some of these things have been updated and streamlined. For example, NIA will address terrorist offenses. Main cheez kya hai? It is a investigation agency, right? There's a proper act. It has a lot of powers. Can NIA target individuals? So now they have also they can even target. By the way, this was added later by a certain amendment. Okay. Now, even for rapid response for counter-terror operations, NSG has been updated with this also. For terror operations, not that it has been created here, but for counter-terror operations, NSG can be used. There is a mention of NAT grid. What is NAT grid? It is a national intelligence grid. So here, please remember, it maintains a security database, but please, this point is not limited only to maritime. NAT grid is for overall intelligence. So I can use national intelligence grid here also, a proper database security, which means maritime security ke liye bhi, but I can use the same point also for overall security also. Fine. Then ICG, the Indian Coast Guard, of course, for coastal security. What has happened post 2611 also specifically, what has happened? Roles and responsibilities have been outlined better. Then you have IMAC, Information Management and Analysis Center, basically for traffic monitoring, for security information. This is there. So there are certain institutions whose role have gotten more clarity in the recent times. One. Second is training and identification. यहाँ पे काफी चीजें हुई हैं. पहले बात तो of course the Marine Police is being trained by Indian Coast Guard. Right? Training in general is important. Compulsory vessel registration. Okay, so Ministry of Shipping has said all the vessels have to be registered. Number one. Biometric ID cards for fishermen. ये क्यों होगा? Same, right? So better identification. Important point. Now, you have increased or improved the surveillance. कैसे? Again, coastal radar chains, 24/7, vessel traffic management systems. Okay. You also have national command control communication intelligence networks. It may be, if you remember, only one of them. that is good enough. Joint operation centers, basic क्या point है, surveillance has increased. We've seen two things. One, it has increased and it has become 24/7. So real time as much as possible, and this has become even better because of biometric registrations, and now the technological aspect has also been there. ठीक है? Lastly क्या है? Special forces. So you have Sagar Prahari Bal, the fast boats हैं, etc. for naval bases. You have National Maritime Domain Awareness Project. Okay? तो यहाँ पे क्या है? It integrates all of the information in surveillance system. So for example, on the east coast there is a project, on the west coast there is a project for the Indian Ocean. So the maritime domain awareness क्या करेगा? All of these projects will be brought into one. And then there are joint operational. So DM ने देखा है अभी, there is a National Maritime Security Coordinator. What is the work of this? It will try to coordinate with all these bodies, because ultimately now you know there is a lot of interaction and there will be a lot of involvement. So this is also being done. So Navy, Coast Guard, Customs, you have to streamline and discuss. So Customs भी है, this we should not forget, okay? Because in coastal security, a lot of drugs, when they enter the port, the Customs will have to, let's say, oversee it. Arms trafficking can also happen via the trade which is happening and entering your ports. Can we say this? Okay. Even this is mentioned, some of the initiatives of Sagar Indo-Pacific Ocean Initiative. So we just have a look at certain keywords here. So you have again elimination of barriers of trade, maritime disputes, okay, collective response to natural disasters. So यहाँ पे you see that there is an intersection of Indo-Pacific as well as Sagar with maritime security. So Sagar, which says security and growth for all, and Indo-Pacific, both of them have an intersection. That is what we are trying to say. ये हमने पहले भी देखा है, right? So there is a centrality of maritime security. So if you get a question on maritime security, you can easily bring in IPOI and Sagar, even if this question is asked in GS3. If this question is asked in GS2, you can still bring in elements of GS3. So this is that one question. There is an intersection, right? Okay, this we had seen. One second. What is the last part here? इसको नहीं, next page. ये तो वही है. अच्छा, terrorism. Okay. So I'll just ask you one question. Just write one question. This was asked this year. We just quickly brainstorm this for a moment. Just a second. Just write, why is maritime security? Although you read maritime security every year, but this year they have asked you a question. This is a 15 marker, 1-5. Why is maritime security vital? Vital to protect India's sea trade. Why is it vital to protect India's sea trade? Second part, discuss maritime and coastal security challenges and the way forward. Maritime challenges and the way forward. वी हैव जस्ट सीन दिस आर्टिकल, आई एम जस्ट सेटिंग अ स्मॉल टाइमर 2 minutes. सिर्फ ब्रेनस्टॉर्म करो, सोचो सवाल में आना क्या चाहिए. एंड दिस इज अ 15 marker, दिस क्वेश्चन इज 2025. The people online, you can also mention some of the points. If possible, you can write in parts कि इस part में what the point you wanted to make. That will make it better and more specific. Although the question is not complicated at all, everything is in front of you. Direct question है, 15 marks. Chalo, I'll just ask you, what are the parts here? Very clear. Okay, so basically I'll have to talk about 3 things in the question. Okay, the first part in this question is importance of maritime security. Second is, and third, ekdam clear hai? Now let's see this one by one, and very quickly we'll just see the points. When I'm saying why is it, why is this vital, which means basically I have to talk about its importance. Fine. What is the importance? देखो, जब भी कोई चीज क्यों वाइटल है फॉर इंडियाज सी ट्रेड, सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट क्या होना चाहिए? इकोनॉमिक भी है, बट आई विल गो इनटू बेसिकली. रिमेंबर, याद है? थिंक ऑफ आइदर मलक्का, Strait of Hormuz, etc. That is one very specific point. That is why maritime security is vital. What if any of these points, Hormuz or the Strait of Malacca, if that is blocked by non-state actor or external actor, will this be a problem? ठीक, बाकी तो सारे points बिल्कुल सही हैं. One, a lot of economic trade happens through this region. Energy dependence, yes or no? And you can give example that 80% of India's energy goes via Maldives. This can be one example, right? और सोचो और क्या points होंगे vital. Why is it vital? नहीं बोलो, ठीक है, बट यहाँ पे कोशिश करेंगे थोड़ा इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी से लिंक करेंगे, राइट? तो हाँ, फिर वैसा पॉइंट बेटर है. यस, इट इज वाइटल फॉर स्मगलिंग. हाँ, टू प्रिवेंट. ठीक है, ओके. तो आई विल मेक बेटर दिस इन चैलेंजेस. वो रिपीट होगा वरना पॉइंट. और सोचो कुछ. एनी पीपल ऑनलाइन? चलो, somebody said, ठीक है, good. Yes, Akash, we can mention that to some extent, but broadly then the question will be very specific. I would want the question to be broader. तो सिर्फ मालदीव्स के नहीं, we'll talk of the entire part. तो introduction में can be broader, right? Somebody mentioned economic trade is one, but even broader point is blue economy. What is blue economy ultimately related to? Oceans, yes, and ठीक है, बिल्कुल. The blue economy in that sense is a very broad term. Any other point that comes to mind? ठीक है, good. Even minerals you can take as a separate point. So चाहे polymetallic nodules, etc., etc. Okay. Yes, vital for C lines of communication. So I think 5 or 6 very good solid points you can mention in the first part. So you have given an introduction. You have mentioned why this is vital. Clear है? अब आ जाओ इस पे. Discuss maritime and coastal security challenges. Now here you don't have to कि नहीं मैं maritime अलग लिखूंगा और coastal अलग लिखूंगा. You can club both of them and you can write your points. Fine. Now here I don't think anybody in the class should have an issue. फटाफट points बताओ क्या क्या होने चाहिए. Maritime and coastal security. I think online में भी काफी लोग ने लिखे हैं points. Maritime and coastal security challenges, right? Now, क्या point है इसमें? A lot of points we have seen. So number 1 issue is, चलो ठीक है, piracy है, smuggling, trafficking, and you just don't have to drop these keywords. It's a 15 marker. You would have to explain them with an example. Okay? I'm just dropping a keyword because I know you understand. Then other than that, नहीं बॉर्डर नहीं, बट यहाँ पे मैरीटाइम की बात हो रही है. हाँ हाँ, मरीन में. ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है. अनडिमार्केटेड EEZ. ओके. देन टेररिज्म ऑल्सो. सो यूज ऑफ नॉन स्टेट एक्टर्स, पायरेसी एटसेट्रा. सो आई थिंक 7, 8 एंड इस क्वेश्चन में हाँ, व्हाट यू कैन डू, you can either write it as a 1 2 3 4, but there is another way to put it across. Okay. You can mention traditional challenges and you can mention this can be one way to present your answer. तो जितने भी modern emerging challenges हैं, ये सारे हैं non-traditional challenges. Okay. For example, even the aspect of climate change and climate change linked disasters, these are non-traditional challenges, right? Because conventionally countries only prepared for this. ये आ गया out of syllabus. Yes. So you can write your answer like this. Otherwise, if the question is what are the internal security threats India faces, you can again use this framework. Traditional challenges, which are conventionally border challenges. Okay. And what are the non-traditional challenges right now? The rise of non-state actors. मैं overall अगर बात करूं, okay? Then the rise of, for example, in this case, cyber information warfare, psychological warfare. Those are the new emerging challenges. That is why. So this can be a framework again to write your points. So otherwise, you can mention all these points. ये एक हो सकता है हमारा. या तो इस format में. Last is what? Way forward. Now, what will you write in the way forward? Initiatives. Then within the way forward also, you can mention some initiatives and you can mention that it has to be made better. Right? अब इससे बहुत points है देखो. मतलब अब ऐसे सवाल में अगर आप फंसोगे सोचने में, आप इसको इसी level पे सोचो. At the institutional level, at the surveillance level, the technology level. So you have to think in dimensions. जैसे I think we have mentioned in this one. Okay. अब इसके exact मत लिखो या फिर almost similar to this you can think and write that as a way forward. You can easily do that. Because even with the best of technology right now, we still face such challenges. So, and the gap between state and non-state actors is blurring, right? That is what you will write. So this can be done, so it's not very difficult. Okay, now come to the drug menace and after that I go to terrorism. I think the second topic is drug menace, right? Yes, modernization hai, capacity building, all these points we can mention there. See, people online, I think till here we are able to follow. Drug menace in India, okay? ठीक है, चलो, this is very famous meme that was viral some time back. The drug problem which you are seeing here right now, you can also write यहाँ पे narco terrorism. This was a UPSC mains question of 2024. Narco terrorism, bracket में 2024, just for your reference. Now, see, drug problem, whenever you talk about internal security problems, you talk about drug problems. Whenever you talk of border security, be it land or maritime, you talk of drug problems. But a specific question also again can still be asked on drug and drug related problems in India, right? So यहाँ पे context is an operation that I just spoken to you about, the operation Samudragupta, okay, 2022, again by NCB and more importantly by the Indian Navy. And why was this carried out? Again to curb heroin, narcotics, trafficking in IOR, Indian Ocean region. It was coming from Afghanistan and Pakistan, again make a crescent. This is the death crescent. And you will underline this. This is a part of broader vision to achieve a drug-free India by 2047. Right? Now, factors behind the drug problem in India. See, drug abuse is again a topic you will again see in GS1, social issues, drug problem. So similar points are here also. And when you see the drug problem, think from all the major dimensions possible. एक चीज हमने इतनी बार जो बोल रखी है, that of course the external factor, that is the death crescent, that of course we know. But other than that, why the drug problem exists? What are the common points? So, एक issue is supply and demand, common point. One good point is when somebody says regulation, it means that even most of the people, let's say the police enforcement, the agencies are aware, yet people are able to get it. That means lax regulation, right? Other than that, syndicate. अब यहाँ पे क्या आएगा? This becomes a part of organized crime, which means everybody is aware, let's say aware, yet the problem continues to happen. Think also of this problem geographically, because these two regions, crescent is very close to what? Punjab, okay, even this is there. Can technology also lead to border this problem? Drug, drone se drug ho sakta deliver up, this is also a challenge, right? So let's see this one by one. There are many points to talk about. So you have geographic and certain structural factors, right? So proximity to the death crescent and even the triangle, both things, this point has to be there. In fact, what you can do, if you get a question like this, you can make the map of India, or at least the upper part, and mention both golden crescent as well as the golden triangle. So here you can draw a diagram specifically to highlight this part. ठीक है? अभी इंडिया का मैप कौन कौन बना पाता है? How and how much time do you take? 5 seconds. ट्राई करोगे? लगाओ टाइमर. चलो ट्राई करो. हाँ? अच्छा अभी वो बिडिंग शुरू हो गई है. अच्छा. No, again, if you are, now is a good time in case you are practicing answer writing also. Initially it will take some time. 5 seconds तो उसके लिए जो बहुत practice जिसकी हो गई है. Okay? Even if you take 10 to 15 seconds, that's okay for now. Okay? But with time this will take. Somebody saying 1 minute. So 1 minute में थोड़ा सा time ज़्यादा है. तो if you practice it more, that is there. Second is, most of the diagrams don't require you to always make the whole map of India. In many things, for example, northeast, maybe if you are able to make the section of northeast. Here also, even if you draw the half part, okay, then that is also good enough. But make this a habit. The more diagrams you draw in a time bound manner, that should help. ठीक है. चलो वापस आते हैं. Porous land, maritime borders. So always remember, maritime border is also a big factor for cross-border trafficking. Okay. Socio-economic and political factors. One is youth unemployment, peer pressure, urban. So these सारे points are self-explanatory. Okay. Political patronage. What is the meaning of political patronage? Yes, there is a protection, and here also when I say political patronage, I can talk again about nexus. I can talk about OC. OC is organized crime. that many people, right from politicians to the officials to the crime syndicates, all are involved. And weak institutional enforcement in some states. Some of you may have seen, I think, a clip. There was an interview, interaction going on when there was, I think, a chief minister of a state, and one of the students had asked to that, "Ki sir, are you aware कि इसी college के बाहर the drug is easily available? So why are we not able to tackle and stop it? The police also knows, student also knows, everybody knows, yet there is no action." Okay, what is that? What is this? A classic case of? There's a nexus. There is a weak institutional enforcement, right? And the last thing, we see so many songs also and movies also, media glamorizing drug use, and there is a low awareness of the consequences, right? You've also heard so many times OD, drug overdose, people dying also because of that, right? Then we also talk about institutional and also global factors. सबसे पहला इसमें भी issue है inadequate inter-agency coordination. In fact, many people got to know of NCB only when the raids started to happen for prominent Bollywood celebrities. उससे पहले ये भी लगता था NCB करके कोई अलग से body भी है, right? Second is, see, if NCB is to do its work, okay, it also has to move and travel across states. It means it has to have a constant, let's say, interaction with state police. Police is a state subject, so coordination challenges तो होंगे यहाँ पे, right? This is one. Under-resourced enforcement, right? This is a challenge. Other than that, if all of this is there, global challenges is globalization. Why is globalization a challenge here? We said, what is globalization? What is definition of globalization? Movement of ideas, people and goods, okay, which means services also. If people move, can drugs also move with them? This is a challenge, one. Second is, there is international trafficking networks, okay, across these oceans, which is a challenge. And the payments for them are also getting more and more anonymous. जो भी है जैसे dark web, okay, crypto is anonymous in that sense, at least peer to peer. There is no centralized, okay. So it is because of this tracking. This is a huge challenge. Similarly, dark web. Again, why is the reason why apps like Telegram are so popular? Privacy bhi hai, and again, for example, everything, if people have made a group, okay, then whatever happens in a private group, nobody can track. In fact, if you remember, when the Telegram's founder, when he was, let's say, arrested, so major claims the police, the EU police was making is that Telegram is not just used for piracy, it is also used for a lot of crime, okay. So for that, they had asked Telegram to share all the specific details with the police. Initially they said they will not, it will be infringement of privacy, but then later on they changed their view. They said that, okay, this will depend on jurisdiction, and if we have to comply with the jurisdiction, we will do so, fine. Initially Apple की भी policy क्या थी? Apple said we will not share the data, but finally when Apple was, it had to go to court, and finally it had to share the details with FBI. Same with WhatsApp. If there is a particular criminal case, if there is a threat to national security, although the app says end-to-end encryption, but in grave matters of national security, right? So फिर ये भी okay, sir, what is end-to-end? Is that really end-to-end? Okay. So then there is a tussle between your right to privacy and state's right to for having law and order, enforcing law and order. Okay, तो दो tussle हमेशा रहेगी. ठीक है. Are we able to understand what are the factors behind drug problems in India? Okay. Now, there have been many initiatives that have happened. So let's have a look at it. फिर Operation Samudra, then some international cooperation है. This is slightly factual in nature. So again, you don't have to remember all of them. Just to tell you, there are many such initiatives. Number one, there is NDPS Act. How many of you have heard NDPS Act? Okay. So National Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act. Fine. This is one. Now, of course, you have NCB. We know you have NIA. Okay. Again, the railway protection, BSF, Assam Rifles, etc. Many are there. And NDPS can be implemented where many of them, right? Why BSF, Assam, and इनका क्यों नाम लिखा है यहाँ पे? Because of drug trafficking across borders. So even they have the power to enforce this. NCB of course has the power, SSB, etc. So there are many agencies which can do so. But because there are many agencies, problem kya hogi? Inter-agency coordination will be a challenge. Yes? Okay. Now, anti-narcotics task force has been created. Okay. Then there's a mechanism, there's a 4-tier coordination structure. I'll just tell you the full form. That is NCORD. Okay. So NCORD, you can write iska full form. एक ये portal है basically. That is National Narcotics Coordination Portal. NCORD. और इसकी भी जो मीटिंग है वो हेड करते हैं द MHA, मतलब which means the Home Affairs Minister heads the meeting. National Narcotics Coordination Portal, NCORD. National Narcotics Coordination, CORD's coordination portal. ओके अब ये आपने कभी न्यूज में पढ़ा हो शायद, निदान पोर्टल. निदान पोर्टल इज एक्चुअली अ डेटाबेस फॉर अरेस्टेड नार्को ऑफेंडर्स. सो हियर इन दिस होल साइड व्हाट यू आर सीइंग, you know an NDPS Act, there is a body known as NCB, but not just NCB, even at the borders the various agencies also have the power to enforce NDPS Act. Fine. Other than that, we have seen there is a anti-narcotics task force, there is the National Narcotics Coordination Portal. सबका काम क्या है एक साथ? What is the main work? To again have a database to fight against the people who are involved in the crimes related to the drugs, etc. Now, एक और चीज है important. One is, see, what is the problem with India's approach to drugs in general in the initial part? देखो पहले तो drugs was only seen as a border issue, first issue. Second issue with drugs, what is the problem? It is also, yes, it's a complex social issue. Second or third, I should say, there's a huge stigma with this, right? So people, and in fact when I say stigma, there are very limited de-addiction centers, and even if de-addiction centers are there, they do not follow all the approaches. Fine. So इसीलिए more focus has to be there on prevention. We know prevention is better than cure. But even if let's say somebody has become an addict, ultimately you have to focus on de-addiction centers. So here also purely a law and order approach will not help, because this is also a social problem. The problem also has roots with unemployment, roots with frustration, alienation, glamorization of media, for which there is no alternate mechanism. If somebody has got an addict, so यहाँ पे this particular part now has seen more focus. Fine. So just इसमें भी remember this one major mission, that is नशा मुक्त भारत अभियान. जैसे we say नक्सल मुक्त, now we have नशा मुक्त भारत अभियान also. Across all districts there is again a specific action plan for drug demand reduction. Okay. If the demand of drug is reducing, then only you can tackle the markets, because markets will work on what? Supply and demand. Yes or no? This is there. Now other points, just have a look at it. You don't have to remember how many. This will continuously change, which means you have rehabilitation centers for addicts, community peer-led intervention centers. तो जब भी आप आंसर लिखोगे, even in internal security, only don't write this framework or only the legal initiatives. Also mention the prevention and the de-addiction part. What are we doing at the community level, etc. So district de-addiction centers are there. Okay. De-addiction helpline, Nav Chetna for students, etc. And they're also collaborating with certain important institutions, Kendriya Vidyalaya, etc. So this is one. Okay. So prevention, de-addiction, there are some important points. Now one specific point we'll see is this Operation Samudragupt, right? And you wanted to intercept narcotics which will coming from Afghanistan and Pakistan via Arabian Sea. This is why Indian Navy was involved in this. तो ये this is a targeted maritime drug, okay, interception strategy. And please remember, there is a focus on maritime as well as transnational drug control. और यही चीज, same चीज, this becomes nothing but evolves into narco terrorism. So we are doing drugs right now, so narco part we are doing. When we do terrorism, then also you will understand the linkages of terrorism and organized crime. All right, so this is one. Now there are certain psychedelic substances. Any example of psychedelic substances? कोई हाँ अच्छा, और मैं ठीक है, आपने देखा भी होगा इन सम ऑफ द, ठीक है, अब इसमें जो ज्यादा पॉइंट बोलेगा, ओनली वन एग्जाम्पल पर पर्सन इज गुड इनफ, ओके. फिर आपको नहीं सर, वी आर एक्सपर्ट्स इन दिस फील्ड एज वेल. Okay. So just maybe one or two example you can write here, and you'll be surprised to know some of these are non-addictive and some of these are non-toxic, but they are prohibited under NDPS Act. Now, ये भी आपने सुना होगा issue that some of these have a lot of therapeutic use, but you have to see what is the Indian stand. What is this? The Indian law does not permit their use. Okay, so abhi in USA maybe some of these substances are allowed, in some case jurisdiction wise they are not allowed, but in general you have to know what is happening in this case, right? Magic mushroom suna hoga aapne isme, right? Perceptions and mood. In fact, there was a question of prelims on mushrooms, and one of the statement mentioned that mushrooms can also have psychotropic or psychedelic properties. So that is true. The mushrooms can be bioluminescent, but they can also be psychotropic. Okay. Now, some other initiatives are also there. Bilateral level, there are certain conventions, because please remember, we are dealing with a transnational crime also. Fine. So which means, just underline, India has bilateral agreements with the countries related to drug trafficking. One. Now we also, is इनमें से भी जितने initiative, the most important is UNODC, that is the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. Other than that, be it SCO, okay, or let's say BRICS, they also have certain cooperation related to narcotics. So this second point basically, so first is bilateral, but second for us is multilateral organizations. So only one or two examples, the best one here will be this. Okay, the International Narcotics Crime Bureau, the multilateral organizations may, you can remember. I can even add cooperation etc. with Interpol. Okay, now USA, UK or Australia etc. they also have their own agencies. So what can happen, that we can have real-time operational coordination with some of these agencies. Okay, so I'll just tell you the full form of a couple of them. So DA तो आसान है, Drug Enforcement Administration, but I think the second one, अच्छा, that is UK के केस में this is National Crime Agency. This also has the objective of related to narcotics. This is the National Crime Agency. This is the Drug Enforcement Authority. So maybe just one or couple of names you need to know. Formation of maritime security groups to examine challenges in seaborne narcotics trafficking, right? So when we talk about, let's say, Colombo Security Conclave or any of this part, anything related to security should also include the aspect of drug trafficking, because it's a complex phenomena, right? Other than that, legal conventions, for example, UN Convention on Drugs, maybe just one you can remember, that we are a signatory to psychotropic substances and even a signatory to illicit traffic convention. Okay. Now in the way forward, like we have seen, pehle to don't see the specific points, just see the broad points. If I have to tackle the problem of drugs, what broad steps can I take? Just think without even seeing this. क्या करा जा सकता है? Okay. सोचो, देखो सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है कहां से ड्रग्स आ रहे हैं. Okay, they're coming from both these borders and also coming from the oceans. I can stop them. How can I stop them? Better surveillance, better enforcement of laws, and better intelligence and coordination. 3 things I have to do, right? What I can do other than that? Because when you see the points, then you can understand. So then is at the local level also, I need to have development, right? Community level support, right? See, even if there are rehabilitation centers, we have to adopt the best practices. Okay. For example, in USA, there is something known as the Alcoholics Anonymous. That group has one of the best results in terms of de-addiction. The people who are a part of it, and the main reason is, why is it so popular? Because it has a huge community support. Main issue with the problem which the people face with de-addiction is, there's a lot of stigma. And I think they have a 7 or 8 step framework which is very popular. Alcohol या Addicts Anonymous करके group का नाम है, from USA. So a similar point can be used in Indian context also, right? The main thing is we have to make it destigmatized, number 1, right? Follow the best practices also, and community level support होना चाहिए, so that these people ultimately de-addiction, when it happens, they can become again the part of mainstream, right? Which can also prevent suicides, which can also prevent other issues also, right? And at the India level, national level, what do you have? Better coordination at state level. Because if the drug flow has to happen from, let's say, Punjab, okay, let's say it goes to Rajasthan, Haryana, comes to Delhi, other parts, the state governments have to be in touch, fine, and then the enforcement has to be done in the right part, fine. Ab agar aap points dekhoge, a lot of points will make a lot of sense to you. Number 1, strengthen surveillance and intelligence sharing. Up to support this, maybe using AI, blockchain, real-time analytics to detect trafficking routes. Right? Then expansion of rehabilitation in infrastructure. Right now, very limited de-addiction centers would be present. So what do we want? We want to have more of them, especially in the high risk zones, okay? In the slums. Target demand and supply simultaneously. How would this help? बिल्कुल सही है, दोनों चीजें हैं. अगर if you only work on one side, if you only stop the supply, but if the demand is very high, what this will lead to? People will find alternate routes. Okay, so you have to work on both. Same, अगर मैं इसी को flip करूं with the problem of alcohol also. For example, a dry state, let's say like Bihar, if they just stop the supply, what happens? Black market increases, and then the problem is state also loses the revenue. Plus spurious alcohol. You know what is spurious? Right, जिसमें there will be more adulteration, people can also die. That will also increase, right? So that is also a challenge, right? Then, so ultimately you have to combine both. Demand reduction कैसे होगा? तो for that, for example, we have, where is it? We have the National Action Plan for Drug Demand Reduction. But this will be a socio-economic issue. You have to understand. In 1 second, I cannot simply wish away that all these things will go away, fine. Long-term demand reduction, that is why it is mentioned long-term, with societal reintegration of drug users. Okay? Then, capacity building of enforcement agencies. Why? Because the way drug trafficking is happening has become very modern, fine. So which means you have to train the law enforcement, dark web investigation hai, financial tracing hai, interstate coordination, yes. Additionally, community based. So notice we are also bringing in local people, right? One here, one here. Panchayats, school systems, NGOs, awareness and resilience, right? And lastly, like we mentioned, integrated national drug control strategy, okay? So wherein defense, MEA, education, health. So now you understand this issue has, let's say, overlap with various ministries also. How come Ministry of Home Affairs and External Affairs are related? How come MEA? Because drug trafficking is also happening from outside, right? Education and health, why? Education for better awareness. Health, because these people, health will also be impacted. Yes. So that is why, remember. Why defense? जैसे अभी भी, for example, army had to be involved for Operation Samudragupta. So that is why this is a very complex phenomena. It is not just a responsibility of a single ministry to carry this out. So when we say drug trafficking and when you have to write, so ultimately the examiner will see, are you able to mention all the causes? इसमें भी simple सवाल अगर बनेगा, क्या होगा सवाल? मतलब basically they'll ask you why this is a big problem, what steps are being taken, and what should be done more. As simple as that. So why is this a problem? If you write down the proper challenges, if you mention these roots, the complexity of it, the role of external state and even non-state actors, what steps are being taken if you mention some of the important points, and what should more be done, सामने अपने पास way forward. Right? Now let's see the conclusion here. One, so India's drug problem is no longer confined to addiction. Yes. Just underline, it is a strategic, security, socio-economic threat. And also please underline this term, narco. Abhi next topic apna hai terrorism. From narco terrorism to youth vulnerability, it demands, see the term, whole of government approach. In approach, we'll see two terms again and again. One is, for example, the whole of government approach. Another term that you will often see is whole of society approach. Can anybody tell me what these two terms mean? Whole of government, तो पहले क्या होता था? Half of government या 1/4 of government? Huh? Okay. No, so what was the problem before? Okay. So earlier, see, please remember, earlier, when I'm saying whole of the government, earlier the keyword for us is, the approach was in silos. In silos means what? Fragmented, isolated. And by the way, these terms are not exclusive to internal security. You have governance में आप पढ़ते हो इन terms को. Our approach, why river Ganga is still polluted? One of the main reason is different programs were happening, but they were not integrated as one. So things were in silos. Whole of the government approach says that all the organs of the government ultimately will be used to tackle this, which is why you see multi-ministry coordination. When I see whole of the society approach, it simply means this is not an alien thing we are fighting in. Right? So when you combine both these approaches, which means when local participation, societal reintegration is added to the government, which means the government agencies, the institutions, the law making, all of that is integrated, then only you can holistically solve a problem. और पहले क्या होता था? Our approach was not integrated. Sometimes the executive takes a lead, but the laws are not strong enough. Sometimes laws are strong enough, but implementation नहीं हो रहा है. We know this, right? So when the laws are there, you tell me, if the laws are there, why are we still not able to solve this problem? Issue is implementation. So again, it is often said, it is not the severity of laws, but it is the certainty of laws that creates a deterrence. Severity problem नहीं, आप strict से strict laws बना लो. There are crimes for which even death penalty can be there. But does that stop the punishment? Why does it not stop? Because there is no certainty of punishment. Right? अभी भी आपने सुना होगा, I think a couple of days back, Sanjeev Sanyal, who again made a critical remark on Indian judiciary, that Indian judiciary is the biggest roadblock to India's economic recovery. So that takes a long time. Judiciary also, when you see. So here also I can bring that point up. So when I'm saying whole of the government approach and whole of the society approach, और ये keywords और भी जगह आप use कर सकते हो, right? Tackling poverty, tackling hunger, development, other points. Okay? Now, So from narco terrorism to youth vulnerability, you want whole of government approach, strong international cooperation, grassroots level awareness. Okay, and now we've also linked, because we started the article with Operation Samudragupta. Okay, this Nasha Mukt Bharat Abhiyan, better enforcement capacity. India is moving towards, क्या है target हमारा? Becoming drug free. So if you get a question on this, you can add the Nasha Mukt Bharat Abhiyan, India's target of 2047. These things you can mention. Okay, so this is there. Okay, चलो we'll start terrorism after a break. इसी का वेट हो रहा था. अच्छा, so the people, now I'll be sharing a new link. People who are watching this online, who can see this. I've got a couple of comments here for the people online who wanted to know. So these classes are from the VAJRA batch, and I think somebody mentioned, sir, what part will be covered? We'll be completing the entire internal security in today's one class. So here these classes again mains oriented. There are some demos also, some points that you wanted to know. You can also reach out if you want to know more. Depends on the explanation also. Let's see. Apna early bhi वैसे, you know. Okay. So at what time do we end? No, at what time do we meet? 3 is too early. I think we should have a very extended break, na? Then we can also end early. अगर आप 3 बजे बुलाओगे तो फिर then you don't blame me. हाँ? अरे हम और पहले कर देंगे. 9:29. हाँ.